to the player setting.
I know. You ready, Alexis? Yes, sir. You ready? John, you ready? Yes, sir. Okay. We're on live, right? All right, let's let it rip. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City of Hialeah Planning and Zoning Board meeting and Land Use Amendment meeting for Wednesday, April 26, 2023, and just in time, the men of the hour. Everyone, please rise for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity here tonight. We ask that you please watch over us, grant us some wisdom to deal with these items in front of us tonight and guide us as we make the right decisions for all those involved. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May be seated. Thank you for coming. Do we have anybody on Zoom? We do? Okay.
Meeting guidelines. The following guidelines apply to today's Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Any person, whether participating via the web platform, telephonic conferencing, or physical presence at City Hall, interested in making comments or posing questions on any item on the agenda, may do so during the meeting. Members of the public may hear the meeting live through telephonic conferencing using any telephone or cellular phone service. A smart device or computer are not necessary to participate in the meeting if you join by phone. All persons participating via the web platform will be muted during the meeting until called upon to be heard. Participation through Zoom requires a computer or smart mobile device with a microphone and web camera. The participant may elect to participate in the meeting using audio only or appear through both audio and video. The video function of all participants appearing through video will be turned off until called upon to be heard. All lobbyists must register with the Planning and Zoning Board prior to item being heard. A maximum of 4 speakers in favor and 4 speakers in opposition will be allowed to address the Planning and Zoning Board on any item. Each speaker's comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Roll call. Mr. G. Perez?
Here.
Mr. Ramon?
Here.
Mr. Iglesias?
Here.
Mr. Jimenez is absent. Mr. Ulloa?
Here.
Mr. Casanova is absent. Mrs. Enriquez?
Here.
We have a quorum. Administration of oath to all applicants and anyone who will be speaking before the board on any item.
Anyone and everyone that's going to speak in front of the board, please stand, raise your right hand. That includes everyone in the electronic audience. Todas las personas que van a prestar testamento, por favor, pónganse de pie para jurarlo. Okay?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth before this board?
Okay. Thank you. You may be seated. Let the record show the answer was on the affirmative. I didn't see anybody on Zoom. The 2 people. I see Marig and Emilio. Emilio is the architect. Okay.
Summary minutes or a copy of the audio file of the proceedings before the Planning and Zoning Board shall be prepared and submitted to City Council before its hearing. The Planning and Zoning Board recommendations for the following public hearing requests will be heard by the City Council at a scheduled meeting of Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. OU1, small scale map amendment from low density residential to transit oriented development district. Properties are located at 901 East 27th Street, 921 East 27th Street, 931 East 27th Street, 941 East 27th Street, 951 East 27th Street, 957 East 27th Street, 967 East 27th Street, 971 East 27th Street, 981 East 27th Street, 991 East 27th Street, 902 East 28th Street, 912 East 28th Street, 922 East 28th Street, 932 East 28th Street, 952 East 28th Street, 962 East 28th Street, 972 East 28th Street, 982 East 28th Street, 992 East 28th Street, and 2740 East 10th Avenue. Hialeah zoned R1, one family district, applicant Tomas Vasquez.
Name and address, please. Press the mic.
That's nice. Good evening, board members. Carlos Diaz with offices at 333 Southeast Second Avenue, here on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you.
The properties in this application include an entire block with the exception of one lot fronting East 28th Street that might be incorporated into the development in the future. The block is surrounded by East 27th Street on the south, East 28th Street on the north, East 9th Avenue on the west, and East 10th Avenue on the east. The property is located within a half-mile of the Hialeah Tri-Rail Metro Rail Transfer Station and north of the proposed Metro Station development, a TOD proposed development recently approved under Ordinance 2023-038 and 042. The applicant is before the city requesting a land use amendment from low-density residential to transit-oriented development district to be able to redevelop the block with a new 612-unit residential development in accordance with TOD regulations. The requested land use is consistent with Goal 4 of the City of Hialeah Comprehensive Plan related to transit station developments, as well as with all related objectives and policies. Based on the analysis of the existing infrastructure, the property is developed at its maximum intensity, meets concurrency. Recommendation approval.
Thank you, Mrs. Storch.
Right. Good evening, again, board members. I'm joined by Ivo Fernandez tonight, who's our project architect, and is here to answer any questions you may have. Giselle, I don't know if you want to pull up the.
Yeah. I'll put it up right now.
So we're very excited to present to you this another project in the Hialeah Transfer Station TOD district. And as you will see now in the presentation, this property consists of almost an entire city block between East 9th Avenue, East 10th Avenue, and then 28th Street to the north and 27th Street to the south. You can go to the next slide.
This one?
Yeah, that one. As Deborah mentioned, we're just north of the Metro Park 2 project, which this board and the city council recently approved. Next slide. Like the other TOD projects in the area, we are requesting a TOD amendment, which is this application, and a rezoning, which is a later application on the agenda to permit the development of the project. You can go to the next slide.
One second, please. Let the record show that Mr. Jimenez is present. Welcome. Thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead, please continue.
Later, as part of the rezoning, I'll walk you through the project and the site plan. For now, we just wanted to say that this is the latest project in this TOD area, which is being rapidly improved as a result of the city and this board's vision, which dates back to 2016. As they say, good things take time. This application complies with the goals and objectives of your comprehensive plan, including increased density around mass transit and employment centers. As you all know, these properties located close to mass transit. We have Metro Rail and Tri-Rail just 2 blocks away. But more importantly, we're within walking distance of a significant employment center, which is the Hialeah Hospital and the surrounding uses, including a Leon Medical Center facility. The professionals who work in this area need modern housing options that don't require long commutes. With that, we conclude this portion of the presentation and we remain to answer any questions you may have. We'll be back to the rezoning later in the agenda.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board?
Go back to the slide that shows the projects that are already approved. No one before. Okay. There you have in the screen, you have in orange all the projects that have been already approved. So this is one more. It's coming like gradually. You see the first block, the second block, the third block. So we are not interrupting any residential.
Except for the one lot, which is.
Well, the one.
Correct. So I can speak to that lot. As you remember in the Metro Park, the original application, we had some lots that were not included originally. Right. The property that we're missing here is actually under foreclosure now. We've been trying to acquire it. So I think by the time we're done here, hopefully we could have that property under control. And what we might
No,
end
it's
up,
not.
end up doing is like in Metro Park, we just had like a basically like a park area almost for the residents. That may be the same situation here when we get there.
And the reason I said that is this, considering the atmosphere, that might possibly be a thorn on your side,
Right, yeah.
that one lot. But if you're already in negotiations
Yeah.
or that can only benefit you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Any comments or questions from the audience? Yeah, okay, I can't have you speak from back there. Please come up. Come up, come up, come up. It doesn't hurt. We don't bite. Hmm? Yeah. Okay, come up, come up, come up, up. Okay, wait 1 second, 1 second, please, 1 second. Okay, first of all, we need your name and address
Oh, my.
to recognize you, and then you have,
Sure, no problem. My name is Amelia Diaz Bencomo, 979 East 29th Street. I'm not even in there, but what is the green and what is the
The
orange?
green is the subject property, is the one they are coming, they are before us to change the land use there. And the orange ones are the ones that were already granted the land use and rezone.
No problem. Thank you very much.
you're quite welcome. You see, you didn't hurt. All right, thank you. Any more comments or questions? Anyone in the electronic audience have a comment or question? No? Closes the part of the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion, Mr. Iglesias, second by Mrs. Enriquez. Mr. Ramon,
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa,
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez.
Yes,
Item has been approved.
keep working on that little lot.
Yes, we will.
LU two, small scale map amendment from low density residential and high density residential to transit oriented development district. Properties are located at 965 East 24th Street, 975 East 24th Street, 981 East 24th Street, 991 East 24th Street, and 997 East 24th Street. Hialeah zoned R1 family district and R34 multiple family district. Applicant Carlos L. Diaz Esquire.
Good evening again, board members. Carlos Diaz with office at 333 Southeast Second Avenue, here on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, sir.
The properties in this application are located on the north side of East 24th Street, east of East 10th Avenue, and have low-density residential and high-density residential land use. The adjacent properties to the north, also owned by the applicant, have TOD land use as granted in 2021 by Ordinance 21038. The property is located within a half-mile of the Hialeah Tri-Rail Metro Rail transfer station and south of the Metro Park development currently under construction. The applicant is before the city requesting a land use amendment from low-density residential and high-density residential to transit-oriented development district to be able to redevelop the consolidated site with a new 347-unit mixed-use commercial residential development in accordance with TOD regulations. The requested land use is consistent with Goal 4 of the City of Hialeah Comprehensive Plan related to transit stations redevelopment, as well as with all related objectives and policies. Based on the analysis of the existing infrastructure, the property, if developed at its maximum intensity, meets concurrency. Recommendation approval.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Carlos?
Right. Good evening again. I'm joined by Michael Klinger from ownership and Ivo Fernandez, who's the project architect in this application as well. And we also have a quick presentation here, but this property, it's located within the same TOD area. This one is right on East 25th Street and East 10th Avenue in that southwest corner there. We're immediately south of Metro Park, let's call it the original Metro Park project, which is currently under construction, which is on the north side of 25th Street. You can see that it's a similar map here, but we're showing this property in green. You can go to the next slide, Iselis. As Deborah mentioned, we have two applications here as well. This one's the land use application, which is only limited to the lots on East 24th Street. The ones on 25th Street already have TOD land use designation. This is a very special project for us because it's right at that corner of East 10th Avenue and 25th Street. So I think we have a great opportunity here to really revive and be one of the anchors for this district. think if we go to the next slide, just at least you can see here, you can see the existing conditions. There's like parking that backs directly into East 25th Street there. And then the next slide is the rendering of the proposed project that we'll walk you through on the rezoning application. With that, we'll end the presentation and be here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are you the same entity that's building on the north side of,
No,
No, it's a
No.
different entity.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because the building's kind of like,
It's the same architect, so
Yeah,
he's
okay.
here, yeah.
well, there you go. It's the same signature.
Yeah.
All right, comments or questions from the board?
yes, you may come in, you may come to
Wait a
the
minute,
front.
wait a minute. Anyone in the audience? Come on up. Name and address, please.
Raul Martinez, 953 East 24th and 947 East 24th.
Not the honorable Raul Martinez. huh?
No, I'm not, no. no.
Okay.
Only by name. I knew
Okay.
him, I know him.
No relation.
No.
All right, go
My
ahead.
question is, we're talking about a lot of projects. How about parking?
Right, so I think we will address parking as part of the rezoning application, but we're not requesting any parking variances here on this project and the one before. We're complying with all the required
Because I
parking
see a problem
and
right
actually
now,
providing excess parking.
right next to the, well, what they build, those buildings over there on 24th Street near Lejeune. The parking over there is miserable. They're parking on the, what's the name of that place? Not Sedano, no, the other one.
Navarro, O'Reilly's.
That's where the people are parking because they don't have any space to park.
No, that's not true. I pass by there every day, the
Pass by
Navarro.
there, I
I
live
pass
there.
by there, I know the developer has several different
And
small
you don't
projects.
see the park?
Most of yeah, but it's not from his property. Who parks there is maybe because they want to go to
No, you
Navarro.
don't see the parking right in front of the street,
Yeah, but
right on top of the sidewalk?
I saw that the other, because that's my way to go to my home.
Okay,
So I turned and I
that's why I
saw,
put to and from.
and I
every day.
saw what was happening and there was a car parked there. It was on the car and there was a lady waiting there for a bus from a school to come there. It's not a resident from that building
But I'm
because
talking about
mo-
even,
most of the residents of those buildings work in the hospital and they only have one car and they live there especially for
only
that.
one car?
Yes,
And how come the front is always loaded with cars?
well.
Right on top of
yeah.
the sidewalk. You
Well,
can go by there. Any of you
If
can go
if
by
they
there.
are by the sidewalk, we will send the police to
Send the
check on
police.
that because you cannot even park
Send
in
the
the
police.
swale area.
Because a lot of,
Yeah.
they rent one and they get two families in there. You
No,
know that
no,
happened.
That's not true.
That's not true. Okay.
That's
I'm
not-
about-
Mr. Martinez, I can honestly sit
Uh-huh.
here and look you straight in the face
Yeah,
and
me
tell
too.
you
Me too.
that if there is one thing that this board is very, very strict and very picky about, is parking and the lack of. We have denied many applications because of lack of parking. And we have to the point where we have made suggestions and conditions have been applied to applications or imposed on applications where if they want to build, they need to provide additional parking, be it like you heard me a minute ago about the one lot in the
Right.
previous application. Don't worry about us.
Right.
Okay. We impose on the applicant and on the builder to provide the minimum required parking. So I'm not gonna dispute your opinion and your comments. You have every right to say what you just said.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have facts.
No,
Go
I
by
know,
there.
let me tell
But
you, to
what-
put the facts right, here is my card. I want, send me an email or give me a phone call and I will organize a meeting with you and the developer of those two buildings.
Okay,
So you chat and maybe there are things you know that he doesn't know.
right, because I
That
just,
since he has many projects that he will be
Right.
developing.
I'm right
there.
next
If-
to the
if
project.
There is,
The two lots. I'm holding on till I get a good offer.
If there is a
And-
problem, he will fix, I promise.
And that's
that
the
he
only thing I
will
worry
fix it.
about is the parking. They're gonna be.
Now,
parking.
we take parking very seriously. And like I said, now, if the tenants there are not compliant with the restrictions that have been put forth, then staff
I will
will,
be calling the police. From now on, I'm gonna start calling the police. Whenever I see a car parked on top of the sidewalk.
absolutely, if
I'm
it
gonna
says
call
on
the
top of,
police. I'm gonna be like a vigilante right now.
No, take pictures and let's talk, and then you
Okay.
come to the meeting with the pictures and.
Oh, I can take pictures.
They can-
And we'll fix it.
Whole day long.
And we'll
now
fix
do
it.
keep in mind, keep an open mind. If there is on-street parking,
Mhm.
okay, that's public property. Cars can park in the front on the side of the
I
street.
understand. that.
They are not allowed to impede or to block the sidewalk, or impede the flow of pedestrians, or block any ingress or egress out of a
No,
driveway.
no, but I know the problem you're talking about because there is a big catch basin there that is all concrete, so someone interprets that is a parking and they are always parking there, so
Mhm.
take pictures, we'll meet with the.
Yeah,
with
the
the-
only thing I worry about is parking. I mean,
Okay, okay.
you know,
okay.
I've been here,
Stay on top of it.
I've been here since 1960.
In these,
I fought in
yeah,
Vietnam.
in these huge
I'm
buildings,
100% disabled.
they are all building parking garages and the parking garages have what is required and sometimes more, so okay, that won't be an issue.
I'm gonna go ahead and put you in charge of the parking vigilante around there.
It's a little parking issue.
Yeah,
You're
no,
gonna be the-
Vietnam, I mean, it was in
you're gonna be
Vietnam.
the
I'm
park-
100%
The
disabled.
parking enforcer. There you go.
The park, we'll name you the parking ambassador.
There you go. But please,
The name, you never forget my name.
no,
And you know where I.
take pictures, take pictures. You have her number, you have her
I got it,
contact,
I got it.
and let's do it right.
I will.
Because if there are individuals that are willingly
Right.
not following the rules, let's nip them in the
Talk
bud.
about Hialeah, come on.
I know my people. You know, I always say this. I know my people.
I know my people.
I know my people. So, but that's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. Rules are made to be followed.
We follow.
If you don't follow them, then there are consequences.
I hope so.
Keep in touch.
I will.
Remember,
I will.
you're the parking ambassador now. Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience?
This time is different.
No one else anyone in the electronic audience? Was the public hearing? What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second motion.
Motion by Mrs. Enriquez, second by Mr. Iglesias and Mr. Ramon. Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez.
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez. Yes. Mr. Ulloa,
Yes.
Mr. Ramon,
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
item has been approved.
Thank you all very much.
Okay. With that last item, we're going to close the land use part of the meeting. So that's closed. We are going to move on to the planning and zoning meeting. So everyone's been already sworn in and stuff, so we just courtesy. You don't have to get up and do the duties again. So please.
Item number 1. Approval of Planning and Zoning Board summary agenda of April 12, 2023 as submitted. Motion to approve. Motion by Mrs. Enriquez, second by Mr. Ulloa. Mr. Ramon,
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa,
Yes.
Ms. Enriquez. Yes. Mr. D. Perez.
Yes.
Item has been approved. A written decision and resolution will be prepared and presented for review to the city council. The city council is authorized to affirm with conditions or override the decisions by resolution. After the resolution is adopted, contact a member of the city clerk's office to obtain a copy of the final decision and resolution. Upon your receipt of the final decision and resolution, contact the building department to obtain your required building permit. Summary minutes or a copy of the audio file of the proceedings before the Planning and Zoning Board shall be prepared and submitted to the city council before its hearing. The Planning and Zoning Board recommendations for the following public hearing requests will be heard by the city council at a scheduled meeting of Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. Item number 2. rezoning properties from R1, one family district to TOD, Transit Oriented Development District. Properties are located at 901 East 27th Street, 921 East 27th Street, 931 East 27th Street, 941 East 27th Street, 951 East 27th Street, 957 East 27th Street, 967 East 27th Street, 971 East 27th Street, 981 East 27th Street, 991 East 27th Street, 902 East 28th Street, 912 East 28th Street, 922 East 28th Street, 932 East 28th Street, 952 East 28th Street, 962 East 28th Street, 972 East 28th Street, 982 East 28th Street, 992 East 28th Street, and 2740 East 10th Avenue. Hialeah zones R1, one family district. Applicant Tomas Vasquez.
Evening again, Carlos Diaz with offices at 333 Southeast Second Avenue, here on behalf of the applicants. Thank you.
If you want to put his slides, so when I read my report, they can look at the picture. The rendering.
So we're back again on the green,
Yeah.
on the green spot.
Or you can put the third one. This, yeah. The properties in this application include an entire block with the exception of one lot fronting East 28th Street that might be incorporated into the development in the future. The block is surrounded by East 27th Street on the south, East 28th Street on the north, East 9th Avenue on the west, and East 10th Avenue on the east. The property is located within a half-mile of the Hialeah Tri-Rail, Metro Rail transfer station and across the street of the proposed Metro Station development. The site encompasses an area of 4.91 gross acres, allowing 125 units per acre, which results in 613 units. The proposed development includes an 8-story building with retail on the first floor, oriented towards East 10th Avenue, flanking a proposed courtyard, lobby, and amenities space fronting East 27th Street, and studio and one-bedroom units also on the first floor. The development is proposed to include 121 studios, 284 one-bedroom units, 71 bedroom plus den units, and 137 two-bedroom units. A 789 space parking garage exceeding parking requirements is proposed with frontage and entrance facing East 28th Street. To be able to develop the property as proposed, the applicant is requesting rezoning from R1 to TOD. Since the proposed project materializes the intent of the TOD regulations and propels the advancement of the district, the rezoning and variances shall be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Storch. Carlos?
All right, so this, good evening again, joined by Ivo Fernandez and Tomas Vasquez, who's the applicant. This is a rezoning and site plan approval application. We already discussed the location of the property and the land use that you approved earlier. Just if we can go to the next slide, the site plan, I just want to go quickly through the. So this, as Deborah mentioned here, we have an 8-story building with 612 units and approximately 4,000 square feet of retail. You can see the rendering in the next slide. This one. So here's the rendering for the project. This application does not include any variances, and we're actually providing 100 parking spaces in excess, almost 100 parking spaces in excess of what's required, as to Mr. Martinez's earlier question. I think as you all know, these projects and the other developments in the area are really transforming this neighborhood and creating a place that you will see a lot of people living in once these projects get developed. As I said, this is taking a long time. 2016, the city adopted the regulations, but now you have Metro Park under construction and you have a lot of interest in the city. So we ask that you recommend approval of these projects to allow us to build.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah.
All righty. Comments or questions?
How many parking spaces does each tenant receive?
So it depends on the unit, correct? Because we have 1-bedroom units, studios, 2-bedroom units. So the code, I have the requirements here very quickly.
The code is
Yeah.
up to studios and 1 bedroom is 1.5 parking space, or 1 parking space.
Right.
And a 1.5 for a two-bedroom.
How does the 0.5 work?
1.5 is that you collectively have more parking spaces and then the management of the building, they manage. If you move there and you want, probably you get one space. And if you want a second or a third space, you pay for those spaces.
Right, because the idea is that not every one unit would have two people or two cars. I may have two people, but somebody may only have one car, and only have one person, so it depends on the units.
But you are proffering, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, no.
You are proffering surplus.
Correct, we have excess parking. We have parking in excess of what's required by the code.
Well,
Just- yeah.
sorry,
Go ahead.
will the parking be also available for, I guess, for the retail space?
Right, there is some parking for the retail space. Here we have, and every project is different. Here we have 4,000 square feet of retail, which is not a lot. The next project has a lot more retail because it's right on East 25th Street, and you will see the parking. The retail requires more parking, right? So it's we have parking includes the parking with retail as well. Yes.
Yeah, other developments also built with more parking than
Right.
required because they also realize it could be a business next to the station that you go to the station and you pay to park your car.
Well, it's like I said, not to repeat myself, but I can feel very, very proud, hold my head up high that staff has finally gotten the, the view that parking has been a problem and conditions have been imposed on developers such as yourselves that when you do build or propose to build a new project, parking has to be there and then some.
Right.
So for that,
Well, and also, as you know, we will be engaging soon this is a master plan area. That's why it's so easy when they come, we know what they are bringing. But we will engage a group that we already bid out the project and we will doing a master plan for the city of 2050. So we're going to master plan the whole city. We're going to have a transportation plan, but most importantly, we're going to have a parking plan. So there are areas that we will detect that sometimes the businesses expand and they use parking that in reality is for everyone. So this needs the blessing, of course, of the mayor and the council. So at some point in certain areas, we will need to charge for the parking. And this will cure many of the problems that we have seen for years.
and again, you just mentioned something, whether you realize it or not, that is dear to my heart. Okay, the master plan out to 2050. You're talking about
25
long-term,
years, yes,
long-term planning. So,
25 years because it will take 2 years to prepare it.
Right.
We will go to each area and you will all be invited. So you will be able to participate.
I mean, we've been enforcing parking quite a bit,
No, and I think-
but it's getting to the point where no parking, no project. No back out parking onto a main road either.
No, and I think as
Nope.
Deborah mentioned, one of the good things about these areas, is you have a lot of these larger projects that are providing excess parking. So in the future, when you have smaller projects that don't have room for parking, they can use the parking that might be excess. Well, once the project is built, you do know how much parking you need or not. So
That,
it's a good thing that the city is planning for the future. that
That's
way.
what happens in urban places.
Right.
Maybe you don't park on front of your property, you walk 2 blocks and you park somewhere else, you have retailers, or you have a gym, will be a nice place to walk.
that's why I wanted to make sure that Mr. Martinez understood that as far as parking is concerned, we're very strict on it. So, and well, I gave you a minute. Whatever, like I said, we can't control people down the street seeing that the owner has enough parking and it's, hey, you know what? Let me park in there. I just gained myself a permanent parking spot. And they're actually taking away from the property owner. We can't control that. However, you being the official parking ambassador can definitely help us with that. Right. Okay, I'll open the floor and you have your. Okay, any comments or questions from the board? Not at all. No? Comments or questions from the audience? You know the drill. It's one at a time and you need to identify yourself and the address. And so now you're Mr.
Middle name?
Ambassador.
Raúl Manuel Martínez.
There you go.
He's Raul L. Martinez.
Okay.
I'm M. 953 and 947 East 24th Street. One question.
Yes, sir.
I'm 100% disabled. You haven't mentioned disabled parking at all.
No, it's required. That's,
It's
we
required.
don't mention it because it's a requirement. There is a building
Fair.
Percentage.
requirement that there's a percentage, every 20 parking spaces, you need to have 1 or 2 handicap.
That's, that's,
I'm interested in that.
there may even be, and I don't wanna jump the gun, but there may even be, like you see in the malls, big shopping centers, like you see right in front of the city hall here, dedicated parking spots for like,
I parked there.
for, right, for, disabled veterans or veterans or stroller parking, that kind of thing. I'm not sure if that's code yet or that's working its way down the line, but definitely considered.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, anyone in the electronic audience? Okay, close to the part of the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve. Second the motion?
Motion by Mr. Ulloa, second by Mr. Iglesias. Mr. G. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Amon.
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa.
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez.
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias.
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez.
Yes.
Item has been approved. Item number 3.
You want
Rezoning.
a chair?
Item number 3, rezoning properties from R1 one family district, R34 multiple family district, and C1 restricted retail commercial district to TOD, transit oriented development district. Variance permit to allow a maximum building height of 10 stories where 8 stories is the maximum allowed. Properties are located at 965 East 24th Street, 975 East 24th Street, 981 East 24th Street, 991 East 24th Street, 997 East 24th Street, 934 East 25th Street, and 954 East 25th Street. Hialeah zoned R1, one family district, R34, multiple family district, and C1, restricted retail commercial district. Applicant Carlos L. Diaz Esquire.
You want to identify yourself again, Carlos?
Yes, Carlos Diaz and George Navarro with offices at 333 Southeast Second Avenue.
Thank you.
The properties in this application include 5 parcels located on the north side of East 24th Street, east of East 10th Avenue. Currently under the land use amendment process from low density residential and high density residential to TOD, and the adjacent parcels to the north that have TOD land use since 2021. The site encompasses an area of 2.77 gross acres, allowing 125 units which results in 347 residential units. The proposed development includes a 10-story building with a lobby and amenities fronting East 25th Street and retail uses on 25th Street and northeast corner of the site. An 8-level parking garage in compliance with parking requirements will provide entrance on East 24th Street and will be lined on East First Avenue by residential units. To be able to develop the property as proposed, the applicant is requesting rezoning from R1, R34, and C1 to TOD. A height variance is also requested to allow 10 stories where 8 stories is the maximum allowed. Given that Metro Park on the north side of East 25th Street has been granted the same height variance, the increased height is compatible and recommended for approval. The proposed project materializes the intent of the TOD regulations and propels the advancement of the district. Accordingly, the rezoning and variances shall be approved.
Thank you, Mrs. George. Carlos?
Good evening again, board members. We have, as you know, I think we've gone through this before on the other project. Here we have the rezoning to TOD for this property in East 25th Street and East 10th Avenue. So you can see in the, you can go to the next slide, Sally. So this is the zoning map. We're simply extending that TOD map from Metro Park across the street to our property on East 25th Street. We can go to the next slide, Sally. So you can see the ground floor site plan here for the proposed project. Here we are right on East 25th Street, which as part of the city's master plan is supposed to be the main street for this TOD district. As such, we're providing this 20-foot wide setback. And you can see sort of the streetscape there. The idea is that we'll match what Metro Park has. So we have like a boulevard type feel when you're driving down East 25th Street and all these projects are completed. This project contains 347 units and we have approximately 15,000 square feet of retail. So it's a lot more retail because like I said, it's right on the main thoroughfare there. You can go to the next slide. This application does not include any parking variances or reductions. We're complying with all the required parking. I have some excess parking as well. As we said with the previous project and all the other TOD projects you've approved in the past, this is, we're here meeting the intent of the city's master plan for the area, and we ask for your recommendation or approval.
Thank you, sir. Comments or questions from the board? Anyone in the audience have a comment or question? And Mr. Martinez, you heard there is ample parking there also. You're not gonna forget me. Get some feedback. You're not gonna forget me, but I'm not gonna forget you either, so. All righty. No comments or questions from the board? Anyone in the electronic audience? I mean, from the audience? None? Okay. Close the part of public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Iglesias, second by Mrs. Enriquez.
A little feedback.
Please push them back a little bit.
Sounds like,
Mr. Di Perez,
yes.
Mr. Amon,
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez.
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you all very much. Have a great night.
Don't let the ambassador down.
Item number 4, rezoning 390 East 43rd Street from R1 One Family District to P Parking for the construction of a new parking lot to serve the existing restaurant located at 4290 East 4th Avenue and rezoning a property with folio number 04-3106-009-0040 from R1 One Family District to C1 Restricted Retail Commercial District to make the zoning consistent with its existing land use. Variance permit to allow 27 parking spaces where 38 parking spaces are required related to the proposed expansion of the existing restaurant. Properties are located at 390 East 43rd Street, 4290 East 4th Avenue, and folio number 04-3106-009-0040. Highly zoned R1 One Family District and C1 Restricted Retail Commercial District. Applicant Ricardo Largo.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Microphone on?
It is now.
There you go.
Let me start over. Good
Name and address,
afternoon.
please.
It's a pleasure to be back here. Last time we were here was last month, I believe it was March 15th.
Let's start with the name and address. We do need
Excuse
to
me.
remove you from table, but you're,
Here, I was presuming
No.
that you recalled who
We
I
don't?
was.
No, this is not a table item. We re-advertised.
oh, you re-advertised, because it was table last time.
We did table it, but we decided to re-advertise.
My apologies.
No
Please.
worries. But I'm happy to tell you again, my name is John Lucas with offices at 2655 South Lejeune Road, Suite 1011, Coral Gables, Florida. And I have the privilege of representing Mr. Largo, the applicant, after which we've had a several-hour hearing back on March 15th of this year. At the suggestion and ultimately the request of the applicant, we tabled the discussion at that time so that we could continue in what turned out to be somewhat of a collaborative effort, not only of this board, but also conversations had with the neighbors who have been in opposition to this project. Consistent with our agreement to get together and try to work out at least an understanding of certain conditions that we could agree upon that would serve to not only support the application of the applicant, but also create a respect and conditions in light of the interest of maintaining the quiet enjoyment of the neighborhood. I reached out to Ms. Mejidas Perez, and I did receive a response from Mr. Perez, who's here tonight. And he indicated that notwithstanding that we did in fact have an agreement or at least an interest in getting together to develop conditions, he and his group had reached out to various members of their neighborhood who, notwithstanding any conditions that might be suggested, would still be in opposition to the relief that we have requested
Mr.
in our
Lucas,
application. Yes,
If I
sir.
may be so bold to interrupt you for a second, and I do apologize. Would you like to read the
The
item into
report.
the record?
Okay,
Let's-
let me to
Please.
refresh.
I got a little sidetracked because was it table? Was it not table? Is it a new item? Re-advertised, so I apologize, I lost track, so let her read it and please don't lose your place.
The property in this application is a vacant, low-density residential site located on the south side of East 43rd Street. The site is adjacent to a commercial property on its east side and on the east half portion of its south property line. It is adjacent to single-family homes on the west and west half portions of its south property line. Across the street on East 43rd Street, the property fronts on the north side of a single-family home and the west end of a fast food restaurant. The commercial property adjacent to this side of the property has a restaurant and market. Both the fast food and restaurant with market size front East 4th Avenue, that is one of the main north-south corridors in the city. It is noticeable along the East 4th Avenue corridor that many commercial properties expanded into the adjacent properties as business prospered and grew over time. The McDonald's, Sedanos, and auto parts sites are testimony of such a trend. The existing business at the site was established around 2008 and was a great success upon its opening. The consequences of the success and quick growth of the business made the owner adopt temporary and often precarious solutions over time, such as utilizing a container for storage or storing goods on a neighboring property he owns. A rezoning application was filed with the city a year ago, and it did not go through. However, the applicant learned how the neighbors felt affected by the expansion of the commercial business, and he improved his previous plans to make sure his business is self-contained. The applicant, who is the owner of the adjacent restaurant and market business, wants to improve the 390 East 43rd Street property as a parking lot for his business in order to replace the existing west side parking lot where he plans to build an addition to the existing restaurant. To be able to do so, he's requesting rezoning from R1 to P. As per the plan submitted with the application, the proposed parking lot complies with the landscaping and walls separating the similar uses requirement. The addition planned for the existing restaurant includes a gazebo for outdoor dining attached to the main building and a detached building for food preparation with an adjacent gazebo also planned for outdoor dining. The applicant's proposal also includes the addition of a two-story storage building on the south side of the westernmost lot adjacent to 4290 East 4th Avenue that has commercial land use. The applicant is also seeking rezoning of this lot from R1 to C1 in order to make the land use and zoning consistent. A drive-through lane with a 5-car capacity and a pass-through lane with a 3-car capacity are proposed on East 43rd Street within the existing restaurant site. The purpose of the drive-through is to facilitate food pickup, which is a significant part of the business, to better serve customers and to reduce parking demand. The new site layout, including the added site, will provide 27 parking spaces, 25 on-site and 2 off-site, where 38 parking spaces are required. The intent of the addition and significant improvements proposed by the applicant is to create additional space for the growth that the business experienced since it first opened. The rezoning from R1 to P for the vacant lot shall be approved since the P zoning will prevent the construction of any type of building on the site, given that this zoning classification only allows parking lots. The proposed parking lot will also serve as a buffer between the commercial buildings and the adjacent residential home. The rezoning of the small parcel to C1 shall also be allowed since it will make the zoning consistent with existing land use. The parking variance could also be allowed since the takeout lane will reduce the parking demand and the 8-car capacity of both lanes almost makes up for the 11-car parking deficit. However, to ensure that there is no traffic overflow into the residential neighborhood, it is recommended to the applicant to install signs to warn his patrons not to park over the residential neighborhood soil areas. The sign type, location, and permitting needs to be run by the streets department. Recommendation is approval. After our discussion today, we will come up with some conditions as we came last time and as of what they have researched. So let's hear of what the applicant wants to say.
Mr. Chairman, may I continue?
Please.
Thank you. I am joined tonight by Maria Fernandez, the architect, as well as Emilio Agrano, who you'll recall was here at our last meeting. Both are in attendance this evening on Zoom. To the extent there's any questions, both are available to the board. Very briefly, because we did spend many hours together on March 15th, let me just reiterate that one of the main objectives that we emphasized at our last meeting was the need for us to find a balance, if you will, in order that business can serve to coexist with the adjacent and contiguous neighborhoods. In that effort, what we attempted to do was to come up with certain operational characteristics and conditions and changes that would serve to ameliorate and or eliminate the types of complaints that we heard previously. You'll recall that we heard generic descriptions such as neighborhood impacts are harsh, noise intrusion, vehicles blocking the right of way, lawn persons blowing cuttings, out into the street, drag racing, none of which is really generated by this particular business. But nevertheless, we spoke about conditions that appear to be, at least argued to be, unique to East 43rd Street. But the issue of traffic in the city of Hialeah is not one that is unique to East 41st Street or to East 4th Avenue. What we have is a business located at the southwest corner of 4th and 43rd Street that is going to be expanded and improved upon in many respects, all of which we touched upon at our last meeting. With respect to the operational characteristics themselves, I can tell you that an earnest effort was made not only at our March 15th hearing, but also subsequently when we reached out to the neighbors in an effort to try to have a discussion, a dialogue as it related to those operational conditions themselves. And it's our commitment to continue to do so, notwithstanding the fact that the neighbors, given their sentiment and firm resolve in opposition to this project, respectfully declined that opportunity. In re-engineering the operational characteristics of a business that's been in existence since 2008, we're talking about a 15-year-old business. So what Mr. Largo has done is considered, what can I do to change this established business model in order to facilitate or address the type of issues, if you will, that were being raised. Let me say this, Mr. Largo is committed to the city of Hialeah. He has invested in the city of Hialeah. He has invested significantly in his business itself and is committed to continuing to do so. We addressed the issue of signage at our first meeting, and one of the conditions that was recommended by staff was one, first and foremost, of having to comply with the street division requirements for signage. The signage that would be used for purposes of deterring parking in areas that would otherwise encumber or create a burden on the neighborhood itself. I mentioned to you in response to staff's recommendation at that time that we were absolutely in favor of compliance in that regard. In addition to which, we have also discussed engaging or employing a towing company, which would also be vigilant in terms of enforcing any types of violations that might occur, and which are contrary to what the real intent of our collaboration in terms of addressing the traffic congestion and like that are typically generated from businesses, not only unique to this particular operation, but we also spoke about what occurred on each of the other four corners, directly across the street and to the north of us, obviously being the McDonald's property. We have also agreed to engage traffic control personnel. Why? To keep them on site in order to facilitate the ingress and egress of vehicles from East 43rd Street to the site itself. If you do in fact have a peak period, if you will, where vehicles are coming in, you might need somebody who can address the issue of queuing, that is the stacking of the vehicles themselves, in order to make sure that everybody's getting off of the roadway in an efficient manner and clearing the roadway for other traffic going through Fair. 43rd Street is a through street for all intents and purposes. We saw photographs at our last meeting of taken by the neighbors of lawn vehicles being parked out in the street, delivery vehicles being parked out in the street, other congestion at the intersection itself being generated from all different directions, whether it's right turns, left turns in, people coming directly across the intersection itself. There were those vehicular conflicts that exist. None of those were uniquely created by this business and the traffic generated from it, but nevertheless, it's a reality and it has to be dealt with. So in doing that, we recognize the need for having somebody who is assigned the role and responsibility of assisting and facilitating traffic getting on and off the property. One of the design features itself of this particular improved design from last year's design is the stacking and or queuing of the two lanes that come in. You have a 5-car queue and a 3-car queue that Ms. Storch spoke about previously that allows you to get the traffic onto the site conveniently, off of the roadway quickly, so that you don't have that type of conflict and or delay to other traffic attempting to go either east or west in that direction. I will tell you that we've looked at the peak periods themselves, and it appears that the real peak periods for this property are on the weekends. So we are going to have a presence there in terms of personnel assigned to the responsibility of facilitating that traffic during those peak periods. The third condition had to do with delivery, and I think Mr. Chairman, you addressed the issue of delivery, and I think the utilization of those trucks and the fact that conflicts were often created by delivery trucks coming into that area. And one of the suggestions is that let's use the far eastern portion of the business site itself, which would be the front portion that fronts the East 4th Avenue corridor. We took a look at the size of the vehicles that come in. That particular driveway and that area could conceivably be used for the smaller box truck type deliveries. But there are those other deliveries that have the larger wheelbases to them, which is not going to allow that to happen. But nevertheless, it can be accommodated more to the east, where we have the storage facility that is also part of this new design that we have. Now, recognizing that that portion of the parking area might be used for delivery, you might think to yourself, well, how do we lessen whatever impact, if any, might result from that change in the delivery protocol, so to speak? Best way to do it is to ensure that the deliveries occur at a specific time frame so that everybody knows, and it's not during a peak period. So part of the conditions from a delivery perspective that we looked at, particularly getting access on and off of delivery vehicles, was to limit those deliveries to the off-peak hours, which would be before noon, Monday through Friday, with no deliveries at all on the weekends. The fourth condition that we considered was one having to do with the concept of the outdoor dining, because we had one board member who mentioned the fact that there was an unsightly type of a garbage can or refuse containers there that really was not aesthetically pleasing, if you will, or complementary to the business itself. So we have, of course, in response to that, there will be no longer any open containers themselves, but will be the closed refuse. I hate to use the term garbage cans, but we'll call them receptacles for the customer's use for that outdoor component of the business model itself. Another concern that was expressed by the neighbors had to do with what appeared to be street vendors, persons who were actually setting up shop and selling their wares, whether they be, corn or cotton or what have you. I have no idea what the actual product was, but the reality is that practice has stopped and will not continue, and should be and is agreed to be a condition to your deliberation on the application itself. And that has to do with the off-street and sidewalk boxed fruit, vegetable containers and the like. Those no longer exist and will not exist going forward. One of the issues that was raised, board member Gamon, you talked about the issue of the parking lots themselves. What happens during off hours? How do we prevent loitering and the like? Well, the business hours close at 9 o'clock, and those parking lots will be chained off. I don't know whether or not a fence will ultimately be installed because that goes through permitting. There's other issues having to do with access and where you stack, the rolling types of gates and what have you. But I can assure you that one of the further conditions that we wanted to address was your concern regarding loitering and gathering and creating that type of a deterrent to that type of a practice is something that is a condition that we too have come up with to address that very, very real concern. The other issue had to do with privacy to the neighborhood, and particularly with regard to the residents located immediately to the west of the subject property. So you have the business location, and as you move to the west, you have the area which is going to be, or we're requesting rather, be rezoned to P. P is only going to be for parking. It's never going to have a building there. But nevertheless, understanding that we need to have a buffer, if you will, currently in reviewing the plans that I reached out to architect Fernandez, it's my understanding that the wall that is going to be erected along the westerly boundary of the subject property is already proposed to be 8 feet. We're proposing that there be landscaping as well that will serve to further buffer the separation between neighborhood and business operation itself. Why? Because one of the complaints, I think it was by Ms. Mejidas Perez, was that, or perhaps it was Ms. Gill, was the fact that during the evenings after the business is closed, you have staff there who are cleaning the pots and obviously pressure cleaning as well in order to prepare the property for business the very next day. While it is not an absolute solution and it doesn't totally buffer all the sounds associated with those types of cleansing activities that occur when a business closed down, nevertheless, it's an earnest effort to try to do what we can to create that separation so that you don't have that unnecessary intrusion. In that respect, I will say that we recall there being a number of members of the neighborhood that were represented to this board as having been objectors rather to the application itself. I think the number was, we have in excess of 80 or 90, but somewhere along those lines. What Mr. Largo has done is has reached out to his customers, and over the course of time, and I understand that there are documents that we can introduce into the record, I will share with you that what I'm going to offer into the record is this composition book. I don't know if you all are old enough to remember these composition books. Some of you look a little bit too young to know what this black and white book is.
Oh, I've got one in my desk.
There you go. Well, this composition book here contains 1,564 signatures of persons who are in support of this business and the continuation of this business and the enlargement and improvement of this business in accordance with the plan that is being proposed for your consideration. In addition to those signatures, there are, by my count, that were provided to me today, 10 letters from business owners in very close proximity to the business location itself. I can go through each one of them. My preference would be for you to see the letters and note that they're either typed up in real or they're in handwriting, and they are very real, and they support this business as well as the improvement itself. But I think most significantly is the exhibit that was provided by Mr. Largo, which is a note from the owners of the property located at 380 East 43rd Street. That's the single family residence that is located immediately adjacent, and in fact is contiguous to the west property line of the parent tract of this property. And the property is owned by Dagoberto and Arneta, forgive me if I'm butchering their names, last name Medeiros. And what they have done is they have indicated that they have a fine opinion of Mr. Largo, and their preference, of course, would be to have a wall that simply separates them. They're actually going to get more. If you see fit to accept the conditions that we are proposing, which we believe are complementary to this project more so are responsive to the objections that were raised by the neighbors themselves. And you consider the support of the 1,564 patrons of this business, as well as the adjacent and contiguous property owners themselves, I would encourage you to vote in favor of it. Allow us to abide by those conditions, which we believe will not only enhance the project itself, but are immediately responsive to the concerns of the neighbors. We will continue to work with them on a going forward basis, because being there as long as Mr. Largo has been, and his expectation, given the significant investment that he's going to have to make in this property, is to abide by that. Now, in my experience, when and counsel for the city can weigh in on this if he deems appropriate, but in my experience, when conditions are in fact imposed, one of the biggest questions that arise is, great, are they just words? I recall at the last hearing, having heard that, well, the lawyer's just going to say, well, sure, we'll just agree to anything in order to get the approval. And I mentioned to you that when those representations are made, they are honest, they're forthright, and they are representations that have been approved by the applicant. And the applicant intends to be bound by those. And when conditions are proffered, if they are in fact accepted by this board, then the question of enforcement always comes into play. And enforcement can be in the nature of civil penalties. Enforcement can be in the nature of injunctions or other type of relief that is often sought either in court and or through an administrative tribunal. It can be before the City of Hialeah administrative boards that they could appoint. But more importantly, the city is always authorized to pursue remedies to enforce certain conditions and or violations of codes or regulations that are adopted at the board and or at the city council level through abatement of what is referred to as a nuisance. It could also be injunctive relief or more severely revocation of licenses and permits and other certificates that go to the use and occupancy of the property itself. So when conditions are offered in support of an application itself, they're very real and they have teeth. But more importantly, they're sincerely being offered in response to what we heard at the March 15th hearing in terms of the objections of these neighbors, and are a result of us being able to offer those to you for the first time without having negotiated those with the neighbors, not having the opportunity to negotiate them with the neighbors. But we're offering those to you in earnest. And in view of that, we would ask that you accept those conditions. I'm happy to discuss each one with you again, if you would like. And we would also respectfully request your approval of our application. With Mr. Chairman, your permission, I'd like to approach and provide the clerk with this evidence.
Mr. Chairman, before we move forward, we need to address a packet that was passed out by
Yes.
Celis. There was an assertion in that packet, a legal claim made that this applicant and the application was not properly noticed as required by our code. I respectfully disagree with that assertion made. It was re-advertised, and the folio number that is an additional addition to this application was properly noticed in both legal form in a newspaper and sent to the surrounding areas in a 3x5 postcard. And I'd be happy to share it with anybody that would like to see that.
Alex, I'm glad that you brought that up because I was speaking with the clerk very briefly. I brought it up to her attention. The mention of the folio did catch my eye. There was another line item in there on the packet that was delivered did catch my eye, and I wanted to make sure that either yourself or staff would address the last minute discovery, if you will.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you for.
I see no issues with the way this was legally advertised.
Thank you for chiming in and clarifying, because I'm not an attorney. Okay, and when you present me with legal claims of folio not being, that's where you come in. So thank you. Are we on the same plane? Okay.
yeah.
So basically, Mr. Lucas, do we have any comments or questions here on the board for the applicant or for the attorney?
To the chair,
Please.
is anybody else going to speak from the audience or?
Oh, yes, I'm going to open it for the audience. And there
Okay,
will be,
okay.
I'd like a question too, through the chair, sir.
yes, sir.
I have, during the next saw something here, that they're saying that they're washing pots and pans outside with a.
Can you, John, I'm sorry, can you make sure that you're,
So, make it clear that-
Oh.
You can talk.
My concern is that I read on this parchment that they gave us, that you guys are washing, or that Mr. Google's people are washing pots and pans outside with a pressure cleaner, and that would be bypassing the grease trap, sending water that has products that shouldn't be going into the water system without going to the grease trap first, and that's a concern to me.
I wasn't aware of that accusation until you just mentioned it.
It's here, they're saying that they're washing pots and pans
right.
outside with pressure.
Was that something the neighbors published today?
It's in the paper. I don't know if you have this.
I don't.
Maybe you should take a look at it. Did you
Well,
find that part?
let's address that in the nature of the conditions themselves.
Because that is bypassing the grease trap, and that is a concern of mine. Thank you, David. What up,
does he, Deborah,
join?
does he want a copy of that? Because you can give him Casanova's. Yeah,
Well, I'll tell you, in light of this is something that needs to be addressed in terms of a condition as well. So if we had had a conversation with the neighbors, we'd be aware of other objections, which I'm certain we're going to be hearing about tonight, including an 11th hour, Hail Mary to try to defeat the application on the basis of lack of public notice. I mentioned to this board previously, this is all about due process. This is all about being heard and putting it all out there. There are no pulled punches. Everybody should be putting everything out on the table. We're out on the table. We've made recommendations of conditions to address specific objections that have been made. To the extent that this condition needs to be corrected, it shall be.
I also want to take a moment to thank you. You've taken measures that a lot of people would not have taken to try to, appease the neighbors and the residents of the area. And I think that you've gone a long way, and I appreciate the work that you've put into it. And let's see what the neighbors have to say. That's all I have to say. But thank you again. I really appreciate the work you've put into this.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
John, thank you for bringing this item up. When Mr. Lucas himself brought up the item of the fact of the pressure washing and after hours, of course, it kind of like if you're pressure washing outside after hours, the word after hours carries a lot of weight. A pressure washing machine is by no means a quiet item. To your credit, the grease trap issue bypassed me completely. So
Yeah, I have one thing. There's electric pressure cleaners that are gonna make less noise.
Right.
Gas powered ones that are really noisy.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be pressure clean, I recommend it just for the neighbor's sake. You can get an electric one that's gonna be just as good, and it's gonna be less noisier for the neighborhood. The second thing is bypassing a grease trap is well, first of all, it's a hot code violation. as Mr. Lugo should know, already owns a restaurant, you have to be Serve Safe certified. That condition should never go, you should never wash your pots and pans outside of your 3-compartment sink or your dish machine.
Well,
That's the concern that I
and
have.
that is also protecting your neighbor, because
Yes.
you know that that is an environmental
it's not just-
hazard, so if he knows now that, he shouldn't be doing that, because if Durham steps in, that is a bigger problem.
Thank you. Noted.
And that's something that it's like Deborah said, is an environmental thing that it doesn't just impact the neighborhood, it impacts all of us, because it's gonna impact our water conditions.
Yeah, it goes down into the water table.
It goes into water. So by bypassing the grease trap and doing your things outside. And it's like they said earlier, my people, we do things kind of crazy over here. We gotta learn how to do things the right way. And, sometimes it's hard. You gotta knock them on the head a couple times. So let them know that these things need to be done in a certain condition, so you don't, aggravate a situation that could be even worse.
Will do.
Through the
As
chair?
far as, I'm sorry, I apologize.
No.
You were cut off in the middle of it, but real quickly,
Yes, sir.
piggybacking on Mr. Yo's comment. An electric pressure washing machine makes as much noise as a household vacuum cleaner, so it's a lot quieter than a gasoline engine, if you will, that it's very loud. And I know because I have both, I have gasoline and electric, so
Very
I'm
good.
sorry.
No,
Thank
that's
you.
fine. Through the chair, Mr. Lucas, I'm really happy to see you here today. I wasn't here last time. It was my wife's birthday and my boss didn't allow me to be here. But that's why I wanted to hear what the neighbors had to say. But based on what you have said, those conditions, they seem very reasonable. That's why I'd like to hear what the neighbors have to say. It seems like the neighbors have no problem with McDonald's, yet they have a problem here. It seems like it's become like a sort of nuisance or perhaps a miscommunication between them. Seems like it's about respecting the neighborhood, the neighbors, but I see that you've come here and everything seems to come into more orderly. So a lot of times we approve things with conditions. So far to me, everything looks very reasonable, but I'd like to hear from the neighbors as well. So perhaps we can
Very good.
mediate this.
Well, we missed you. It was a long meeting, but you had a very productive one, and what we experienced, and I'm just speaking for myself and you all can disagree, but what we experienced was a real brainstorming and or collaborative effort that occurred not only on the dais, but also right here from the podium. So the neighbors' complaints were heard loud and clear, were respected the entire time, and were responded to accordingly. And we're hopeful that that will carry some weight in your deliberations in terms of the intent and sincerity of the applicant going forward. So with that being said, I'll stand down and allow the
I
proceedings
do
to
have
continue.
one more question, and it might be trivial, but in the last meeting, we tentatively agreed on some restrictions, which you have spoken of, 8-foot wall instead of a 6-foot wall,
Additional-
chain in the parking lot. I'm talking if this were to be approved. I'm talking, I'm not saying yay or nay.
Hypothetically,
Okay. Delivery, times for delivery, okay. You mentioned it in your presentation. Those are still valid in your valid conditions in your presentation, correct?
that is a representation to you of a condition that we have looked at and are offering as a condition in light of the fact that pulling a larger wheelbase vehicle into the front parking lot could be one problematic from a delivery perspective, but number two, backing up a vehicle that close to the intersection and
That's
corner
that's-
radius would not be.
Let's be realistic.
Okay.
They're not 53-foot 18-wheelers, but they're smaller 28-foot trailers, but still, it's a semi truck and it's,
The jack.
it just doesn't fit in the front.
Yes, sir.
A smaller box truck type of delivery, yes. Just to add, I live right down the street from there. And I do frequent that street at least 2-3 times a week. She would attest to it because I have seen her very busy mowing her lawn and her little lawnmower and stuff, and we've waved at each other. Give credit what credit is due. The outside fruit vendors, I don't want to call them peddlers because that's demeaning, but the additional fruit vendors, additional entrepreneurs have definitely disappeared. The area overall, I'm not saying 100% now, the area overall has cleaned up. Now there's room for error, but the times that I have driven by there, I have seen it with my own eyes, and I have made contact with the young lady right there, and there's no way possible that she could deny that we have at least waved, we have talked. And just to give credit where credit is due. The conversations that we've had here, the discussions we've had here, that you have been privy to, are being taken to heart. That's very important. Because at the end of the day, the neighbors, are the ones that are being impacted. Whether the merit of the application is valid or not, we must also consider the impact of the neighbors. So I just wanted to put that out there. So where I stand.
Yes, sir.
I was very clear last time, so. Is there any more comments or questions from the board?
Yes,
Please.
I have a few questions. For the proposed 2-story storage building that is close to the 8-foot wall that's gonna be built, are the windows gonna be facing the residents or will it be facing the parking?
They're not in the lot that is contiguous. You have the plans, no? Let me show you.
Yeah, I see here it says new 8-foot high wall and then the proposed building is like right in front of it.
No, I don't believe there's any buildings on the area in which we're rezoning to P for parking. No, there are not.
This is the lot that is being rezoned to be. Here, the only thing they can have is parking. This lot is commercial, so they can build this.
We can't.
They can.
But what I'm saying is, will it have, there's properties here too, right?
Well, if you can put a condition, no windows facing west.
Facing the properties.
No, these properties are commercial.
These are all
The
commercial.
properties are here, so facing residential preferred.
Okay, that was my
would be
concern.
another condition. And I'm sure that storage building won't have any windows. If they have, they will have high windows because they also want to maximize the space.
Okay.
And again, folks, I hate to beat a dead horse. We need to concentrate on the merits of the application. And the merits of the application is for a rezoning that lot to parking
Only.
right? So we have to kind of like, I hate to say this, we need to put blinders on and just focus on the application.
Well, in the application, we have the rezoning to P. We have the rezoning of that parcel where the storage building will be that has a commercial land use, but then the zoning was never changed. And also the parking variance. Those are the things that are before.
And again, restrictions or conditions can be brought forth and debated.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Ms. Enriquez, you mentioned you had,
Yeah, for that 8-foot wall that faces the residential property, will the residents see the wall or are they gonna see the tree, the landscape that you mentioned?
they'll see a wall, but they'll also see the landscaping behind it, and they're okay with that.
They're okay with that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then the last question I have is, how often is the trash picked up?
Boy, that's a curve. I don't know. Let,
Just
let
'cause
me
you don't want the
inquire.
smell to like impede in the residential area.
Well, I'm sure they have commercial pickup.
Yes, they do.
Okay, it's
I'm
not
not sure.
city pickup.
Yeah.
Every day.
Every day. Okay,
Every day.
thank you.
Yeah, because
Nope, I'm with you.
you know how it is with the hot days that we have, you get some meats out there, some chicken parts and stuff, and
Yeah.
they cooked under the sun and
Even if it's
Especially-
enclosed, it would just.
yeah,
seep out,
and
so.
especially since that entity also deals with seafood.
Yes, sir.
That. Okay,
Anything further?
any
Yes.
more comments, questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to speak to the board directly
Yes.
to not influence any decision, but kind of set a legal standard
Yes, sir.
that we should be following. We are hearing a rezoning.
Right.
There's a legal standard for rezoning, and the legal standard is substantial competent evidence. If there is substantial competent evidence that this board finds, then we should pass the rezoning. That's a fact for the board to decide. I will say, as the chairman said, you should only be looking at the face of the application. That's it. Another thing you can look at as substantial competent evidence is Ms. Storch's recommendation. She is the expert on the subject, and whether or not this falls into the comprehensive plan and is consistent with the comprehensive plan is substantial competent evidence. Of course, the neighbors' concerns outward are substantial competent evidence. I will caution you in saying that past behavior does not always indicate future behavior. That there are certain things that you might be seeing in your packets, parking, cars parked in front of homes, things like that. That is iffy on whether that is substantial competent evidence, because we don't know what those cars, where they're going, where the owners of those cars are going. So I would caution this board to only look at the facts and to decide that if they believe that this is consistent with the land use plan, with the comprehensive plan of the city, and of course, they can take the neighbors' future concerns into consideration. Regarding the variance standard is a hardship. If this board sees that there is a hardship, then we should grant a variance.
Thank you. Noted. Okay, no more comments from the board? Okay, here we go.
Thank you all.
At this point, I will open the floor for public hearing. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor or against, please come on up. We will start the timer and
Good evening.
Good evening.
David Perez, 322 East 43rd Street. Morning, Mr. Chairman
Good evening.
and members. So I provided my letter to each of you. I provided a copy. And to just summarize the points on there, the initial item that came before this body was for rezoning of 390 East 43rd Street from R1 to parking. Today, we are discussing rezonification for two properties, 390 and the easement. Now, that is something new that is coming before this board. Now, whether or not it was properly noticed, I disagree with what was being said, but as far as the residents, they did not know that now this is two properties. This is a different item that came before this board initially. Again, the first item was just 390 to R1. Now we are discussing two properties to be changed and to be rezoned. So again, the residents are opposed to this. There was comments about the composition book with 1,000 signatures. To be quite honest with you, Mr. Chairman and members, those are people that come in 5 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, grab something and go. They do not live in the neighborhood. They don't have to experience this and see this every single day like we do. We have a number of residents that are here. We would have loved to have 90 something residents here, but it's impossible. As we said last time, there's some residents that are 80 years of age or more. And at this time in the evening, they just cannot physically get here. for whatever reasons. They have other obligations, family members, transportations issues, and what may be. As far as the delivery time, there's a elementary school right down the street on the other side of Fifth Avenue, right between 42nd and 43rd. So now we're going to have delivery trucks in the morning while school traffic is coming through, creating more problems. That's something for you all to consider. The other thing, as far as trucks backing up, not using the furthest east aisle of the restaurant lot. So now they're going to go into the parking lot where they're asking for additional parking and blocking those parking spaces with delivery trucks, with bigger trucks. So it kind of defeats the purpose. You're asking for more parking and you're going to have bigger trucks, semi trucks, blocking that additional parking that you're asking for. Something for you guys to consider. And as far as the, the investment that the applicant is making, yes, he's making a financial investment. And he has been there since 2008 or whatever the time was, but residents have been there way before 2008. And I went today and I spoke to Mr. Mesa, who owned it before, Felix Mesa of Mesa Barbecue. And for whatever it's worth, I understand your comment earlier, but he also agrees. It's not the ideal solution. The residents have to deal with the problem. So again, I urge this board to vote against it. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Bernie, you need to be sworn in. Alex?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth before this board?
I do.
Name and address, please.
Bernie Quapel, 3760 East Sixth Avenue.
Thank you, sir.
I'm a resident of East Hialeah, a stone's throw away from Fruteria Latin Proud. Today, you'll be considering the legal merits of the rezoning application. However, it's imperative to not overlook the ethical merits of this business and its history with the city, which we've heard about all night, but still. I've seen firsthand some of their shady practices and their ethics appear to be dubious at best. The mess and filth that they leave exposed in the rear, the stench of rotting orts and maggots, and the clear evidence of rodents and their feces. The ethics of a business that stores food and perishables off property, all while behaving peevishly to help evade inspections, may not be a good candidate for special latitudes from this board. The complexity of actions is precious. What does that mean? In part, the message sent is that a business can skirt the rules, evade inspections, not care about the neighborhood's concerns, behave poorly, hire a lobbyist, then simply put it on a good face for the application process, and they get their way. In part, with promises from someone who has proved to be less than forthcoming and sincere, substantial, competent evidence from someone who has hoodwinked the neighborhood should be considered. One way that we get things wrong is by not listening. If this business's behaviors and words, and this application is again recommended for council a second time, then we're simply not listening to their behavior. Last year, this board narrowly passed vote was clearly not a strong recommendation to our city council. This was painfully evident when the recommendation was met head on by the city council's strongly decided 6-1 vote to deny. Tonight, we can rightfully and hopefully make a decision to deny recommendation for this application. No, less than 1 year later, this application is back. Mr. Largo, the proprietor, has broken the trust of our city by violating multiple codes repeatedly. Mr. Lucas, the attorney, may not show malice. However, he does not live in Hialeah and arguably does not have a full grasp of the nuance of our community. These are our residents: Karen Kiesler, Lola Jane Emkia, Teresa Perez, Vincent Hilario, David Perez, Maria Mejides, Miriam Quapel, Irma Jones, Anna Gill, Maria Gill, Olga Maranje, Judith Reyes, George Duranza, Onelia Lopez, Maria Santos, Noemi Clemente, and Carlos Marquez. I'm going to wrap this up because I'm going to run out of time. These are our residents, the people you represent. They're not getting paid to be here. They're not making money off of your vote like some of these men are. Having a customer sign a composition book takes no real effort. Having residents show up on a Wednesday night, many tired after a long day's work, I'm wrapping it up, after a long day's work is a real effort. They're just simply here to ensure that their voices are heard and their neighborhood's best interests are represented. So to you, board member Ulloa, Perez, Hernandez, Gamo, Jimenez, and Iglesias, standing proud here in this chamber are your neighbors and the neighborhood. Thank you for listening and please vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Sir, before you leave.
Yes.
Is there anything that Mr. Largo can do to ameliorate this problem, this opposition?
It's a matter of just by the nature of how he has conducted his business.
Of course.
The neighborhood has lost trust. I understand that there's a composition book that has thousands of.
No.
Yeah, but the neighborhood has lost trust. I know this because I live right in that area and I see it daily. And yes, accommodations can be made. And maybe they want to follow through on those accommodations, but I can't see anything that can be done because what you can't undo is that property will now no longer be the paradise for someone who wants a home there. That can't be undone. We are building here in Hialeah up. We're starting to build up more and more because the one story is no longer enough. And that's what they're eliminating. They're trying to eliminate that from being someone's home and residence to set up cars, to put cars in that space. There's no way to fix that.
Now, what I see is that they're trying to build a parking lot to ease the problem with parking. Now, to me, it seems like it might help you a little bit. That way they're not blocking the street and whatnot. And perhaps if they approve this, we approve it with conditions. That's why I'm asking you if there's something that could be done. If they don't follow those conditions, perhaps Alex can explain, their permit could be revoked.
I think we've all seen, and I'm not saying this is the case, but I think we all know that conditions can be set, right? Until somebody complains about X thing, you're not going to always get those repercussions coming forth. And if you maybe know someone in government, then it will definitely won't hurt you, right? So though those things are in place, again, what you're not removing is the fact that there is not going to be another family in Hialeah living there. You're going to have vehicles. We can keep going. I just don't want to. I don't want to say that I cannot see a way to alleviate.
I think the smartest thing would have been before demolishing the house, whatnot. But I mean, it's his house, it's his property, he does whatever he wants. But is there anything that he can do to ameliorate your opinion, your concerns? Like, because
yes.
Considering, excuse me, I do need to interject. Considering the fact, okay, it is a very important, considering the fact that the application is for that property to be rezoned for parking. So we need to, again, put blinders on.
Yes.
Even though it may be a little bit hard to accept the detriment and the impact of the neighbors, we need to focus on the merits of the application.
Absolutely.
From there, okay, that's the heart of the problem, the heart of the issue. From there, we can debate, if you will, please.
Yes, and the fact that all the neighbors are here, that says a lot. I thank you for being here. I mean, it's taking your time to come over here, and it takes guts to stand up here and talk. So that, to me, that's very important.
I think the only thing that could be done to alleviate this is to have him withdraw the application.
Okay.
That's it.
Because I mean, from some of the pictures, I see that one of the issues is the not enough parking, people blocking driveways and whatnot. And if they're proposing a parking lot, I know logically it seems that will help, perhaps.
Yeah, I again, to answer your question, I think the only thing that could happen to alleviate that is to leave that as like what it is now. Aren't you gonna leave it that way and let a family come and live there?
Thank you.
Through the chair,
Yes, sir.
Bernie.
Yes.
Bernie, I've known you for a long time. We grew up here. This is our city, and I feel as much passion about this as you do. It's not gonna go back. It's already in progress. That house that should never have been torn down, because you have to have some, isn't there a new law that you have to have some permission to knock down a house?
Was there a permit drawn
There
to?
was something about that.
Anyone can come and pull a permit to demolish a.
Okay, but again, John,
Yeah,
please allow me, indulge me in this. Remember, focus.
I am, and I feel as passionate about this as you do. But as Mr. Perez said, yeah, we have
Yeah,
To
you gotta
see
look
things
at the
in-
merits of what's going on.
through what the law say. And if there was somewhere you guys were supposed to meet, did you guys meet with him? What happened in that meeting? Did you guys ever come to some agreement?
I know nothing about any of that. I'm coming separately because I know that this is going on. I know nothing about the inner. workings
And
of
it is
these-
being
I don't-
appreciated. You're,
Yes,
you know, this is your house. You're welcome
Yeah,
here.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
last time that they were here, they were supposed to have a powwow and discuss what we could do to make this situation better. I feel that you guys are opposed to the parking lot because of the situation that's going on, and I think that maybe if you'd open up your mind a little bit, maybe the parking lot might alleviate some of the situations that's happening right now. And maybe just look at his side. I understand that some people are difficult to work with, and I work with a lot of restaurants,
Mhm.
a lot of these people. But maybe if you keep an eye on him and make sure he's on his toes,
no, trust me, I
because
completely,
we can't go back, Fernie, and I would love to. That house should have never been torn down in my eyes. Because I'm for what you're saying. I don't want to keep going up and up and up. But
I
we can't
completely
stop it
understand
anymore.
that. I completely understand what you're saying. That, maybe giving a chance should be, however, if I don't come and voice my disdain for what is going on, then I have to live with myself.
I understand. And I
So,
appreciate you.
I
And thank you
definitely
for
have
coming
to.
here and voicing your opinion. And I wish that more residents would do as you're doing now.
Yeah.
And you're a great resident
Well, I
of the
mean,
city.
they showed up.
Oh, yeah,
showed
they
up to
did.
do their
They did.
thing,
A lot of them
you know?
did show up, but
Yeah.
maybe.
Believe it or not, your word and your opinion and your effort carries a lot of
It
weight.
does. And this more, at least with me, your opinion does carry a lot of weight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Just for the record, young man, all of us here on this board feel the same way for Hialeah as you do.
Yes.
And born and raised.
I know that. I know that. I definitely know that. But that's why I just want to make sure that at least the words were said. So it doesn't se desaparece la cosa and then you don't know. So,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fernie.
Appreciate it. Okay, we have, please.
Teresa Mejidas Perez, 322 East 43rd Street. I guess I'd like to start by addressing Abdel, and your question is, what could we do to see if we can move forward with Mr. Ricardo? And I've given out this idea several times and people aren't hearing me out. There's no trust because, just like you said, like this guy could be an ambassador for the parking or for the garbage. I've done that all these years. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm older now. I'm the one that made this packet. My idea is with the existing business that he has, prove you're going to do these things. I talked about this a year ago and it's taken a year and he still doesn't have commercial grade garbage cans. We were here a month ago. I mentioned it again and he still doesn't have it. I mentioned signage. Please do not park on the sidewalks. You can't ride your bike down the sidewalk. You cannot get, if you have a baby and and you can't take them down with down the sidewalk. People that take their laundry or go with that little carrito to go to groceries, they end up in the street. The other day, I escorted a man, un viejito, because he was falling, trying to get around all the people that park on the sidewalk. We've asked about that. That has not been addressed. So you're asking us, the residents, give us more traffic, Give us more cars, bring more people in our neighborhood, and they're gonna do it. Don't worry. Give them those conditions. What I'm saying is, with your existing business, in this next year, put in the garbage cans, put up the signs, make sure somebody is controlling the traffic, do all the things that you're promising to do it now with your existing business. Prove to us that you're legit. Because every time I've asked, it's never happened. So you're trying to tell me, look, this guy's gonna do it. Don't worry. If anything happens, I don't want to be an ambassador for parking or for garbage anymore. I want to give him a list of demands now with his existing business and see if he follows through. And if he does follow through and there's good behavior, the thing about the P-trap, how many years, 15 years or more of all that oil going into the ground? There's shady things that happen. I don't want to get into that because I don't want to fight with Ricardo. When I met with Ricardo the very first time, it was on a friendly basis. And I'm the one that gave him permission because he drew out this beautiful plan, just like now they're talking about this architectural gem and the landscaping and this and that. And everything that he promised didn't really keep up the landscaping. All the grass, just recently, because Deborah was in our neighborhood, they took away the vendors. That just happened. A month ago when we were here, they let him come constantly. People treading all over there, people standing. That whole parking space that could be for the trucks. Oh, now there's parking. There's a big parking lot. Look at this packet that I made. Look at the size, the FedEx truck, the Leon truck, all these other different, they're huge. Who's going to go through that drive-through? Could those big box trucks go through the drive-through? Do they fit? Deborah? Do they, those big box trucks
But
fit?
let me, that happens all around Hialeah.
I know, but I'm talking about my house, Deborah.
I know that. but
My neighbor, okay, but
most-
answer that one
yeah.
question. No, answer my question. Does a
The-
box truck fit through there?
The box trucks won't go there because the box trucks are the customers, and there are many residents of the city are drivers or are blue collar workers, and that's how they work. So I've seen what you say. No, they're everywhere on 41st Street, west of East 8th Avenue. They park on the middle of the street. There's no visibility. That happens all around. But that making a business in a certain way or another, that won't cure that. The only way to cure that is to have good enforcement and police on the streets. That's the only way. It's unrelated.
And who
to-
pays for that?
Who pays for that? Well, in reality, all the that is
All of us.
that is out of my league.
Okay, but
Yeah.
you're telling me what happens the other, I care about where I live.
No,
I care about what I deal with
understand,
daily,
but-
what I see. You
but-
guys tell me the landscaping, you don't know where they're going. I know where they're going. I live 2 houses away. When they come and they take off, did you see the picture the day I had surgery? Let's go to that packet for a minute. Real quick. This packet. This packet, the day I had surgery, this is not a dog. That's my hand pointing. I had just come out of surgery and I was waiting for my mom to come over. I look out the window waiting for my mom, and what do I see? Landscaping truck. Look at the time. I did these timestamps on my phone so you can see that I'm not lying. They say 5 minutico. From this point that this man got there, when I got to take the picture, he could have been there 5 or 10 minutes earlier. They were there for 28 minutes parked in front of my house. I'm not feeling good. I had surgery. My mom's coming over. My mom's 90. She's coming over to bring me food. Now, I don't feel good for my mom to leave, and I'm worried because now this truck is there, and how's she going to back up and she can't see? Who wants to go out in the street every time somebody has to back out of their driveway and be here? Now I'm a traffic cop too. Go ahead. Nobody's coming. You also see that when they block, delays. There's a truck. This guy has to wait because this guy's got to go around. This is constant. How do I know? because I live there and I'm constantly looking out my window. There's a guy showing up and then there's the other one. Does anybody have any more questions for me on this one? That's very, very upsetting. So imagine, I was like this was the first day of my surgery and I was hurting and I wasn't feeling good. And to see that and how long, it's so upsetting. And you guys think like, well, this happens there's a lot of people that are elderly, that are sick, that they don't feel good. The same thing with the Maranje family. Look, everybody that is right next to that business, every single house signed that petition. The 6 houses closest, everybody signed the petition. They're not people from far away visiting the restaurant and signing. These are people that live there. We're the ones that take the brunt of it. Think about us. Dagoberto and Nea, that they decided that it's okay for the wall. When I talk to them all the time, they're just so scared and tired. He's 92 and she's 86. And they're just able to, so she used to be able to look at, now there's this big wall. So when they take their disabled daughter walking around the property, she has a freaking wall.
Okay, Ms. Perez. It's noted.
Okay.
It's noted.
His plants, that's his only hobby. All those plants. Did you see the beautiful plants
Right.
on the side? What's going to happen to those?
The one thing that I can, and again, I repeat myself. It may not be what you want to hear, it may not be what the audience wants to hear, but we need to focus.
I'm with you.
Focus on the merits of the application. What we are discussing here, let me rephrase. What you are discussing here right now is behaviors, their actions. They are inconveniences, okay, brought on by the business practices. Are we?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
okay. Still, the application for rezoning to parking on that lot, okay, must be considered based on the merits of the application, based on, does it meet code? Does it meet development planning? Does it meet criteria? Okay, does it flow with the neighborhood? Okay. Okay. The fact that there are parking issues, we discussed at length last couple of times, because you're not new to this room here. We've discussed this several times. The garbage, okay, the noise, okay. Again, those are side products. They need to be addressed. Definitely need to be addressed because they are an impact to the neighbors. Okay, but again, go back to the applicant's application. He purchased the property, and I'm going to go out on a limb here. Whether he got a permit for demolishing the house or not, I'm not privy to that information. That is, okay, whether or not, I can't talk about it. But he legally purchased the property and is in the process of getting rezoning and permits to improve that property, to better the business, which will in turn, in the long run, better the neighborhood, the quality of the neighborhood. Okay. What I see right now, and you know better than anybody else here, because I have seen you many times, again, in your little lawnmower and your in your front yard and stuff, we've chatted several times. Just casual, nonchalant, neighbor to neighbor, nothing official.
Nothing official.
Because I am a very, very strict when it comes to the Florida Sunshine Law. No, if there's a case pending, no, I don't talk about it unless it's in public where Joe, Jane, John, everyone can have a chance to hear and reply. None of this behind closed door deals with me. And last time we spoke, which was what, a couple of weeks ago, you were out there doing your thing in your yard, and I said, I've noticed that there's no more vendors.
Well, that just happened.
Well,
That just
last,
happened like a week ago.
no,
That,
That
yes,
happened
I have
weeks
pictures
ago
here proving that.
Because on a Friday, I saw neighbors, so on a Friday, I went there, I met with Ricardo and I showed him all the things that he should take care. I also told him, I understand you have these containers here because your business grew, at least make it nicer. He bought plants, probably you saw that. I went there and I gave him all the recommendations to at
Right.
least to improve as much as can be improved right now.
give credit where credit is due. As far as the trash containers,
The trash containers.
the garbage dumps, what have you, I did not notice whether they had commercial
No, they do
bins.
not.
I did not notice that. So
They
I have to take that.
And they get over one of the
But
first
again-
pages I gave you. It's
Yeah.
this much, nobody empties it out and it blows down the street.
But again, that will be code enforcement. And I hate to be a stickler for this. In front of us, we have an application for a property to be rezoned from R1 to P. The application meets all the requirements set forth by law, by code, by standards, by future planning, okay? It meets all those criteria. We have the power, if you will, to impose or suggest conditions of operations. Wall, times of operating hours, deliveries, as Mr. Gamon said, closing the parking lot. Okay, we have the power and the authority to impose those conditions. Okay. But again, I hate to keep saying it. We need to focus on the application, and we need to make sure that I make sure that feelings don't get in the way. As far as we are concerned, legally. See, legally, we go by law, not feelings. So please bear that in mind. I don't think it can be any more plain, any more honest than what I'm being, and any more open. You follow?
Yes.
Okay, we are,
Well, then I'll talk right now about the rezoning to parking and why I don't want that to happen.
okay. Make it quick.
It's-
so we
Okay,
can-
its merit is that you guys think it'll alleviate it. And if you look at all the pictures of all those box trucks, where are they gonna park? You're making this parking lot for cars, trucks that don't fit in there. So where did they go? So again, do we have to police this? Are they gonna have police 7 days a week out there, not just on the weekends when they say it's busy?
Those-
I am against the parking. That Eastman that he wants to take over, build the wall at the end of the Eastman, take the property you have now, go vertical there and put everything you want. But leave the house. Don't do that to Dagoberto. They're older people. Somebody the other day sold them a water filtration system for thousands of dollars. He was telling me how it got ripped off, and he got ripped off with a termite thing. He's older. He just doesn't want to argue.
Again,
He's
again, Ms.
afraid.
Perez, please.
Okay.
Think,
stick
you
to
know,
the-
see what you're drifting away from.
Okay, I won't drift, and I'll say one more thing. I won't drift.
One
Last
more,
thing.
and then we.
You say that it goes up to 27 parking spaces by law. I don't know the rules now, whatever. But I went to Epicentro and I counted. And Epicentro has 20 parking spaces, regular ones. They have 2 handicap ones. And there's a big shopping center there. So they share those. The shopping center and the business shares 20 spaces. You go to Marin, and let me tell you something, that's East 4th and 42nd. The other property I'm going to talk about is Marin, Palm Avenue and 42nd. Just a street away, there's plenty of places to get food at. But again, Marin only has 19 regular spaces and 1 handicap. And they also share with the Dalton and all those things. They share with the shopping. There's no shopping center. They're encroaching on the neighborhood. Further, if you look at any of the maps, and we have maps, nobody has gone that far.
Again, I
390 for
feel,
them.
I feel your passion. I respect your I mean, I see it.
Allotted more parking spaces than these people.
I see your. I see your feelings.
Because
But
I've lived it.
I know,
lived
and
it.
I
do. Nobody's out there picking up garbage. with me.
I
Nobody-
like I frequent
Señor, por favor,
I
no
frequent
te
the
estés
area.
metiendo
I
aquí.
frequent the area quite often, so I'm very familiar with the area. Not as familiar as you, I give you that, okay? But
Anna's another one.
Anna's back there in the corner, okay?
Yeah.
So just bear in mind that we, as a legal body, are bound by very small window frame. Okay, and that is the law. That is the code. That's what we can go by. We can accept your feelings, your opinions, your what you're doing around and respect it. Okay, but at the end of the day, we need to. Again, that window is very narrow. That's what we need to go by. Now, whether anyone in the board here wants to go outside that window and vote yay or nay, each one of us have a vote. I can't control how he votes, nor can he control how I vote. The same with all of us here. We're all individuals. So I just want to make sure that you're a very smart individual. You've been around politics for a while, and your mom also, and your whole family has been around politics for a long time. So you know the boundary that we're. So,
Diego, could I ask you one question? though,
Yes, ma'am,
and to
please.
the
One-
Attorney Alexander, he was giving examples of when the residents have more of a voice than the business. Could you explain that to me? How does that work?
If this
Like-
board would like me to answer that question, I will.
It's weight, the weight of the
Do you have-
residents versus,
Through the chair.
So
Go ahead.
John,
Please
what's up?
enlighten us.
so substantial competent evidence includes future concerns that the residents could have about the property. So you can take into consideration future concerns that they might have about this property.
But future concerns based on past history. Which
All I'll say is that past history should not indicate
should
future
not
behavior.
indicate, right?
But if the residents do have future concerns about how the property will be utilized, that could absolutely be taken into consideration.
Okay, and
Through the chair,
yes, sir.
Ms. Perez.
I'm so sorry.
I like the way you say my name. You said it perfectly.
Oh,
A lot of people destroy it. Okay, I see your argument now. I really understand it. What you don't want is a commercial to come further west.
I do not want that.
And the reason you don't want that, it's because they have not, I guess, complied with
They
not
haven't
your
been very good- They
requirements.
haven't been very good neighbors.
Exactly, like you've wanted certain things, garbage, parking, etc.
Signs.
It's signs, etc., and that has not happened. And it's been a year and it still has not happened. So you lack that trustworthiness in their word.
Right.
And that's why you don't want commercial moving forward closer to you
Yeah.
and your neighbors. And I think that's a fantastic argument. I understand their argument. It is a substantial hardship because they already bought the property.
But I didn't tell him to tear that down.
No, of course. But I'm just weighing both sides.
Right.
So if there was like a way for them perhaps to change, to show some good faith and follow through with their word, I think that would give you, more calmness.
Yes.
Perhaps that's what I'm understanding. Because based on what you're saying, I wouldn't want to live there. Like my neighbors, they were very loud. So I mean, I called the police.
Yeah.
I'm annoying, I know.
Yeah.
But sometimes I want a little bit of peace of quiet. Or if somebody's blocking my driveway, I call the police. And one time the police came and said, hey, the guy said, why didn't you just go outside? And I said, well, I don't want to get in a fight with this guy.
Exactly.
That's the job of the police. And I will call them 100 times if I have to. So perhaps they cannot control the street per se, but I really like their offer of having traffic, somebody like try to control. So perhaps if they show some good faith and start changing and you actually see results, that will gain your confidence.
Before they do anything else, because like I understand what he says, like, the past behavior might not, but maybe past behavior from a year ago or 2 years ago. But when you're talking back in 2006, and it's been all these years, and we've come here and we've told you what we don't like, and still nothing happens. And then when it's time to, like you say, call the police, this guy, was there 28 minutes. They might have gotten him, but there's some people that are there 15 or 20 minutes. And by the time the cop gets here, they're gone.
Of course.
So again, it's the same thing, you're living there and you're constantly having to patrol everything. It's just exhausting.
Sounds like a nightmare.
And I don't want to, waste everybody's time and keep you here too long and stuff, but I feel passionately about it. And as you can see, I'm a Miami Heat fan. Game 5 today, 9:30.
Yeah, we need to,
And
we need to consider that.
in a way, they have hired Mr. Lucas, and I think that's a step in a positive direction as well.
I do
Because
like
he's very
Mr.
reasonable
Lucas.
and he has like a lot of good ideas. So I just see that we're just missing that marriage of like everybody living peacefully.
And
they
the
would
reason
show-
why I could not get together with Mr. Lucas is I had surgery on the 20th. I think he called me on the 13th. And after my surgery, when I was recovering, I'm a tennis coach too. I had districts. My districts didn't even end till the 15th. And it's exhausting when you aren't feeling good and you're trying to do therapy to make your hand better. And then we talk to the residents again. I go, why are we going to give them a list of demands if they haven't even done them yet? We're going to let them do all this. And oh yeah, I promise I'm going to do all this. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Okay.
That's where I'm at.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
I love you guys. Thank you for hearing me out.
I have given you, I've been more than gracious
Generous
enough
with
to
your,
give
yes,
you,
I appreciate
not
that.
3 minutes, but more like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
Through the chair.
You're lucky you're
Yes,
not my
sir.
husband.
Yes.
Before you leave, so you guys never even met? You guys never got to
No,
talk?
because what happens is it was already close to it. So my husband sent him a text message saying that we spoke to the residents and they didn't want to give a list of demands saying, oh yeah, it's going to be okay. You go ahead and build this and, do this. When they
No.
haven't complied yet, we want to see them comply with their existing business and prove to us that you're going to do that. I want to see that first. I'm sorry, but that's what I want to see. You're asking me and I'm begging you, please show me that first.
Yeah.
If after a year I see nobody parking in front of my house and I see signage,
Ms.
I might
Perez,
say yes.
I have
I-
a question for the attorney.
Go ahead.
Your time.
go ahead.
Why all the conditions that we're giving last meeting, we gave him a list of conditions last meeting. And none of them were met, the covered garbage. Is it because he didn't have the time or he just I don't know.
We spoke generally about conditions, and we definitely spoke about my commitment to reach out to the neighbors, which I did.
Yeah, yeah.
And what I'm hearing is something that is entirely different than what actually occurred. I sent emails to Ms. Mejidas Perez. I did receive a response. In each of my emails, I copied Giselas. Why? Because it was consistent and in continuation of the process that we had undertaken earnestly on March 15th. And the response that I got was, I hope you're well and thank you for following up with us on the issue. At the initial zoning board meeting, we spoke on behalf of the 90 residents who signed the petition against the zoning change. The item was tabled and direction from the board was for the applicant and the residents to try to develop a list of conditions that would be acceptable to the residents and the applicant for the zoning change. Since then, we have spoken to the residents, and unfortunately, the consensus remains the same. Hypothetically, even if conditions could be agreed upon now, the residents are still against the zoning change. At this point in time, unfortunately, given the sentiment of the residents, we don't see a need to meet and discuss the zoning change. We sincerely apologize for the delay in the process, but we'll look forward to seeing you on April 26th at the next meeting. That is in the public record. We reached out, and to your point, I'm hearing conditions, I'm hearing, wait a minute, board, let me prevail upon you to simply put a stop to the process and to the application and tell the owner, come back after you have proven to us that you are a man of your word. When there was nothing but earnest efforts on our part to bring to the table the precise conditions that we were able to, we generally spoke about at March 15th, but what I bring to you today are refinements that result from a thoughtful consideration of the effects or the impacts that we heard on the 15th of March. We actually worked hard to try to come back to you and say that we can stand up in front of you, and this is what we're prepared to do to address not some, but each and every of the complaints and concerns that were articulated after some 3, almost 4 hours of discussion on March 15th. I stand before you again, and while I'm disturbed and disappointed to hear what I'm hearing, which is a rant and a passion that we too have, because the right to quiet enjoyment of one's home or residence or castle is not something that is unique to that property ownership. Property ownership can also be enjoyed by business owners. And the city of Hialeah is comprised not only of residents and homeowners, but it's comprised of hardworking business owners who put their life savings and their efforts and energies into their business. And they work hard to be successful at that. That's why we have government here. That's why there are rules to follow. That's why there is enforcement when it comes to conditions and the failure to abide by the conditions that are being represented to decision makers such as yourself. So I too, and forgive the elevated tone, am very passionate about the advocacy and standing here on behalf of Mr. Largo, given his promise, his representations, and the conditions that he has offered to ameliorate, in fact, eliminate the concerns that we have heard, nothing more than from Mejidas Perez, Ms. Mejidas Perez, Mrs. Mejidas, with all due respect, Mr. Perez, Anna Gill, who all have never complained about the McDonald's, but they are focused, laser focused on preventing Mr. Largo from doing precisely what we have worked hard over the course of the past year to come up with a design feature, an architectural plan, and now conditions appended to that in response to your concerns. I stood here before you and you effectively interrogated and cross-examined me on all the concerns based upon what you have observed being residents of this city. And I stood here humbled, but yet responded to those because we have the firm resolve to make this happen. And for you to be proud of your decision in support of this application. And with that being said, I would urge you to please accept our conditions, give us an approval of the application. And if there is a discussion to be had at the city council meeting, I will stand there as fervently as I am arguing right now in support of this application as well. I thank you for the support of staff, the analysis that was undertaken, as well as council and his indications in terms of, or advices rather, in terms of the applicable standard of proof.
Through the chair.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Lucas.
Sir.
I believe what the residents want is not tell me, show me. Because like, according to their past history, perhaps Mr. Largo has made promises and has not kept them. So I like the idea of approving with conditions, but perhaps between here and the next council meeting, start taking some action, like make some effort to give the residents confidence in what you're saying. I completely agree with you, and you seem very passionate and great, eloquent attorney. But what they want is some sort of action, some sort of follow through of these promises, not to be just empty promises. The city of Hialeah, I think, has only like 3 code inspectors for like over 300,000 residents. So that might not be a reality like right away. And so I think that's what their sentiment is. And I certainly understand both sides of it. I understand your substantial hardship, because it is a great hardship to invest in a property and then you cannot do your project, which I think would benefit the neighborhood and the restaurant.
Thank you very much for your comments. I will tell you that, there is an old adage, actions speak louder than words. Agreed. I'm not disagreeing with that. This is a project which is really a work in progress. Baby steps. We are picking up momentum. Hopefully with an approval with conditions from this board and ultimate approval at the city council level will be kicking off in terms of a further betterment for this neighborhood, which we genuinely believe is the case. But the conditions themselves, and as I mentioned, the enforcement mechanisms that are available to this city in terms of ensuring that representations made to decision makers such as yourself in these quasi-judicial proceedings are in fact complied with, is an important tool. And that's what makes this city a very strong city. Given the sacrifices you all make as members of the public and contributing, I too have served on boards. I was born and raised in Miami, live in Coral Gables right now and have served on the Coral Gables boards for many, many years. It's a thankless job, but yet it's one that's absolutely necessary for the continued success of our respective municipalities. So kudos to you. Thank you for the
So
energy.
you have a personal take on how what position or how we feel, because we feel for the business owner. We feel we acknowledge his rights.
That's right.
We also feel for the impact of the surrounding neighbors. And in my honest opinion, I have to walk a fine line between legal and feelings.
Agreed. I've walked in your shoes. I've sat in that chair.
Whatever decision, whatever yay or nay vote that comes from my lips will be based on the heart, right here, the heart. And I repeat myself, I cannot influence any of my board members here. They have their own vote. So just want everyone present to know that we do have to walk a fine line between law and feelings. Mr. Lucas, we do have room for one more speaker. I believe Mrs. Mejides wants to speak, or
As you wish.
no? Okay, so you guys, well, he does have plenty of time, yes, and you have a limited amount of time. I can bend and I can allow you a little bit longer, so. Okay, so name and address and please, let's stick to the meat and potatoes. No pun intended.
Maria, excuse me, Maria Mejia, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Maria Mejia.
Yes.
Oh, Hialeah resident since 1960. I live at 625 West 60th Street. And I just had to say just a couple of things. This is a planning and zoning board public hearing. And my understanding, a hearing is for two things, to go to like what you were saying, that you have to abide by the what he described, the law, and you have to vote on that. And also all the arguments of the resident. If this hearing was unique for following the set of code and requirements of the zoning, then why do you have a public hearing? Why do we have to say anything? If you have to vote according to that the code is right, that the zoning is right, and then you have to vote accordingly, right? That's what you say? Did I understand that correct?
Not exactly. Not exactly as Mr. Lucas has,
No, I'm talking about him.
as Mr. Lucas has agreed or profited. Conditions can and will be imposed, okay, on certain items, okay? Those conditions come about from listening to you, and also listening to the applicant. It's a balance that we have to reach. So it is open to the public just for that, so that we can hear all points of interest. Ultimately, a decision must be made. Whether favorable or not, a decision will be made. A vote will be taken and a decision will be made. Remembering one thing, okay, very, very important. We are a recommending body. If we vote on yay or nay, whatever the outcome of our vote is, it moves city council with a recommendation, favorable or not. City council, as no one in here better than you know, city council has the ultimate, well, city council has the power to override our decision. Ultimately, the mayor has the veto power. Okay, so just so that we're clear, okay, and I hate to sound, like I said before, I hate to beat a dead horse. Okay, I don't want you all to leave here and say, oh, because I've heard it before. Oh, they're sold. Oh, they're bought out. No, and I will not. You haven't said it. No, don't get me wrong, but that's the last thing that I want to hear from this board here. Okay, we are as fair as we can be. We have discussions amongst ourselves. We have disagreements amongst ourselves. Okay. The planner may recommend a certain way that we don't quite see eye to eye with it. And we will rebuttal that. And we may and have override the planner's recommendation. Okay. So just so that you know that we are here to serve you as the residents, as the neighbors, but we're also here to serve the business owners. whether they live in the city or not.
Of course not.
Okay, that's no, because that's something I hear all the time. Well, they don't even live in the city. They have no say so. Okay, but they own a business. They operate a business in the city. Their tax dollars are distributed amongst all of us. I'm no politician. I'm just trying to give you from my heart. Okay, so I know I cut you off, so please go ahead and finish up
No,
and make it
no,
quick,
no, no.
please.
You-
Because the heat, it's
you
getting.
Said it and said it a few times. You said that you have to vote on the legality and on
Yes,
the
ma'am.
recommendations of the if the application meet all the requirement, you have to vote for it. That's what you said. That's
Well,
what you
that's-
said. So actually, why is it a public hearing when the public doesn't
I
count on the
I
vote?
believe-
Then you can have just a.
I believe I answered that question.
You don't need a decision and you don't need a board of people to hear the people.
I believe I
You
answered
don't
that
really-
question already.
Why do you do, if you have to just go by whatever is legal, why do you have a public hearing?
Ms. Mejides, we're going in circles. I believe I answered that question
Okay,
already.
okay,
So-
okay. I am sorry, but I am, like I said, Andy was serving the city for 15 years or more. And if I don't stand up here and give you what I feel and what I can see and what I can hear, then it's shame on me.
And yes, and it's
Shame on
deeply
me for
appreciated.
all the years that he served. And then I am here, I am listening to all this, and I don't get up and say, I am opposed to this hearing. And let you know that that's the way I feel.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you.
Through the chair, and
Go ahead.
I'll be very brief. In the past, Mr. Largo didn't have any conditions that he had to abide by. But in listening to all of you, we could take all of your concerns and we can make recommendations and we could put conditions, based on our decision, and that's it. It's signed into law. He has to abide by that. Will that bring peace to the residents that's it, it's in writing. He has to follow that. Because he's there, he's not gonna go anywhere. And, he's trying to, his business needs to expand. And he's trying to find a way to work with everyone, work for his own business as well. So if we put these conditions, he'll have to follow them. And if he doesn't,
He'll be
there's
fine.
consequences,
He'll be
right?
fine.
So does that bring you peace if we add these conditions, taking everybody's recommendations, everybody's concerns into account?
Well, just said that there was enough code enforcement or law, so you put all these things, how do they get?
Okay, now we,
Go around again.
yeah, going around and around. So
Can I just say one last thing about McDonald's? They thought I was picking on,
not from there, just real quickly, we need to close this.
Last thing, I don't pick on Ricardo by himself. I've gone to McDonald's. I've talked to them. They have the correct garbage cans. Their delivery trucks only go inside. They have street sweepers that come and sweep up and maintain everything. The only problem I have with McDonald's is the one wall that's on the west side. That one's only 4 feet tall,
Okay,
not 6. That's something
That-
else, not this.
thank you. I'm glad that you realize that we're kind of like drifting away from the application. Thank you. Is there anyone in the electronic audience that have a comment or question? Okay, that will close a part of the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Wait a minute. We have to get Mr. Lucas to proffer on the record to the
Oh,
specific conditions.
Mr. Lucas, that's, you're right, yeah, because there are some conditions on the floor.
And I would also like to point out from the last meeting, remember, this is a new application. Any conditions that were supposedly proffered at the last meeting do not exist
Don't
at this
exist,
time.
okay. I saw, okay, so here's. Thank you, Alex, that's or bring it out in the light, so. Some of the conditions that were discussed, which you proffered, the wall.
If we could, Mr. Lucas, if you can just list the conditions and that you will proffer to those
Yes,
conditions.
please. That will be a lot more efficient.
Through the chair.
Please to do so.
I did write down some of the conditions that Mr.
If I
Lucas had.
missed something, please bring it to my attention.
Very good.
First and foremost, at the very last meeting, we spoke about compliance with the streets division and on the issue of signage and the like. I had indicated back then that we were in agreement to that. That is condition number one for tonight. There will be compliance with the signage requirements of the street division. With regard to the traffic control personnel, we are also proffering the condition that we will hire a traffic control person on site to facilitate access during the peak periods, which are on weekends, which is the time with the most traffic is anticipated to be generated. Item number 3 is with regard to the deliveries. We were unable to focus the deliveries or direct the deliveries to the eastern portion of the property on 4th Avenue. Deliveries will be received in the middle area near the storage facility that's located on the design plans. Deliveries will be limited to Monday through Friday before noon. No deliveries shall be permitted on weekends. Now,
Before noon and starting at what time? Because you know that those trucks, when they go reverse, they have that noise.
A backup alarm.
Yeah, so they should start at least 8:30 AM.
if the board feels that a start time, no earlier than 8 o'clock is,
8:30, I would say.
8:30 is good.
if that is a condition that you're imposing, then it's something we'll have to discuss with the various vendors in order to request that occur. So the condition, as I understand it, given the board's concern, would be deliveries limited to Monday through Friday to begin no earlier than 8:30 and no later than noon. Okay. Now, to the extent that there might be an emergency situation, I don't know if there's ever an emergency situation in the food service industry, but maybe that's something we can consider as well. I don't know if there's ever a time when you need to actually reach out to a vendor outside that period, but if in fact that situation should present itself, then I would represent that we will reach out to whoever you direct at the city to simply inform them of an exception to the rule under an emergency situation. I don't know who that person
or perhaps if there's an emergency, could deliver through East 4th Avenue as opposed to inside the neighborhood.
I'm talking about if you need to receive a delivery outside the window.
Right. But perhaps they could do the delivery in an emergency through East 4th Avenue as opposed to the side street.
I'll have them consider that. But if somebody could,
And also, there's no emergency. If he's an emergency, he has a big van, he can go somewhere, he can pick whatever he wants and then wait for the next day.
very
This
good.
is not
Okay,
that
so
emergency.
emergency situation is not in play with regard to item number 3. With respect to the garbage receptacles that we spoke about, instead of having the standard type of garbage cans, we're going to have the closed refuse receptacles, which are going to be designated for the customer use in connection with the outdoor component or picnic tables where patrons may.
Can you add to that proffer that will be done immediately within the next, let's say, 30 days in case they don't find them?
Within the next 30 days?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Happy to do so.
the ideal would be for when you come to city council, have those garbage cans in place. So when the neighbors come, at least they see the good faith.
I think that's a reasonable request. Yes, ma'am. With regard to the sidewalk vendors, we already spoke about that. There would be a prohibition against the use of the sidewalk areas in terms of sidewalk vendors or off-street sidewalk boxed fruit and vegetable containers and the like. The business will be self-contained to the premises themselves, not to the public right-of-way or areas which are traversed by pedestrians. With respect to the parking lots themselves, given that the hours of operation conclude at 9 o'clock in the evening, based on Mr. Gamon's concern, the next condition, which is condition number 6, would be for the parking lots to be closed and to be enclosed with some form of a restraint, a chain, perhaps even a fence at some point. But at this point, the condition would be that a chain be used for purposes of deterring any other vehicles parking, loitering on the site itself. With regard to the privacy wall, I was originally operating under the impression it was a 6-foot wall, but I was corrected by Ms. Fernandez, our architect, which indicates that it's an 8-foot wall. And we're adding to that condition the installation of landscaping, more so for purposes of attempting to further buffer the use from the adjacent residential neighborhood, and in particular the residents right next door. Being a gringo, how do I pronounce ULL?
Uyoa.
Uola.
Uyoa.
Yo, like.
Yo.
Yeah,
Oh.
Why?
Okay.
Like Uyoa.
Just call me Sean.
Board member JU.
Yeah,
All right.
But you can say Uloa.
Okay,
Uloa.
Uloa. Okay, got it. All right, it's kind of a tongue twister for us. With respect to the issue of the cleansing of pots and pans outdoors and the use of a pressure cleaner for that purpose, that will be addressed immediately. And in terms of gas, we'll investigate the use of electric pressure cleaners as well in an effort to try to abate or mitigate the noise intrusion into the neighborhood as well. That should be noted, and I'll review the record later as we begin to lay them out. That should be noted as condition number 8. Did I overlook anything?
The only one I don't know if we overlooked it, but perhaps cleaning personnel, like somebody like Ms. Perez was saying that McDonald's has somebody clean the sidewalk, like.
I think we can also condition that there will be attention will be given to the cleansing details of the exterior of the premises themselves. I think that's probably a good practice. Doesn't necessarily need to be a condition, but if
Even
you
for
feel
the
that-
business itself, I mean.
even if you feel the need for that to be articulated as a condition of approval, I don't think that's an unreasonable ask. And those would conclude, that would be item number or condition number 9, Mr. Jimenez.
Have we decided on the parking enforcement individual? Would that be on a daily basis or
It's going to be during the peak periods on.
peak areas daily?
Bear with me for a moment. Traffic control personnel on site to facilitate access during peak periods on the weekends, which is the most time, or the time when the most traffic is generated on site.
Okay. I would feel a lot more comfortable. And again, it's up to the board whether the rest of the board wants to impose or modify this condition. I will feel more comfortable if there was that traffic enforcement individual, probably a private individual that he's going to hire. I don't know. I don't think he's going to hire a police officer there, but that traffic control individual must be vigilant to try and avoid. And again, I feel that I'm going to step out of the bounds that I know I shouldn't, but all those long vehicles that are parking on the street in front of the neighbors, that is something that the traffic control individual can address.
Let me speak directly to that. I think that what we're looking for in terms of personnel that will be on site,
right,
to facilitate traffic, it's more of facilitating the vehicles that are coming into the property and are exiting, so that we don't have an unnecessary backup or queue that impairs or impedes the through traffic on 43rd Street. There should be free flow traffic. With regard to those types of vehicles that are actually out in the right of way, I don't know that there's any employee who is assigned the responsibility to facilitate traffic on site circulation, or even a private individual, if one were to be engaged, that would have the authority to go out and police the right of way.
And I don't expect them to walk all the way down to
But I
the end
do
of the
think-
street, but at least
But I do think, just in finishing that thought, that in developing the protocol for facilitating traffic to ensure that you have that ease in facility and circulation on site, that perhaps even a conversation with law enforcement would be, we have a business here. We have deliveries that are being received. A visit every now and then would be helpful in terms of monitoring the flow of traffic on this thoroughfare. We don't want to compound a problem over which we have no control. Same thing with regard to the lawn service vehicles. I don't know where they're
Yeah.
and who they're
that's-
serving, but you know what? They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Well,
They're in my
I-
neighborhood as well.
I don't know how this works, but for example, the Chick-fil-A on 49th Street and East 16th Avenue, when it opened, it always has big lines. And when it opened, it was worse. So the police worked with the ownership and they created a plan. The police was there for a certain amount of time. Since I heard that their service is excellent, I went there for the first time today. And I got there, there was a line, but there was a guy from the store with an umbrella and he was there and I complained and I said, well, I don't want to go into the line. I want to park. And I don't want to wait. I don't have time. So he was there and he started to direct the cars to go to the lane, to move. So that's the kind of attention that maybe Ricardo can go to Chick-fil-A. Spend there an amount of time and see how it works and try to see if he can provide that same customer service. And he cannot control who is parking on the rest of the block. But what he can control is that many of the cars that are parked there are Uber drivers that are waiting for orders from that restaurant. Well, if he sees that it's the same cars always parked there and he's going into the business, well, they should take care of that, or they should take care of calling the police and telling them, well, they are here every day, they are waiting for this. That cannot happen.
Well, I don't know that I can impose or proffer a condition that Mr. Largo is going to go to Chick-fil-A, but
No,
it is a great
I'm giving
parking model.
that as an example.
It's a great
of
example.
The type of
Yeah.
thing that we think we are expecting on that personnel that will be taking care of that.
They have their traffic flow down to a T.
Man, let me tell you, I went
I
there
mean-
for the first time 6 months ago and was amazed. I was
They have it
complaining
down to a T.
it would take forever, and it was
Yeah.
like clockwork. Good stuff.
I guess like a security guard that maybe he doesn't have the authority to tell you, hey, he's not a police officer, but people respect him.
We're going to figure it out. There's a solution to every problem. As I mentioned last time, none of what we've talked about is insurmountable, but it does require a commitment. And that's the commitment that Mr. Largo is prepared to make.
I think that with having someone there aggressively at the beginning, per se, overseeing the parking and aggressively, not
Well, not aggressive.
No.
Strongly.
not aggressively with a baseball bat, get out of it, but
Proactively.
proactively. Thank you. Hey, stand corrected. The patrons will get the message. After we've been told, hey, listen, don't park there, move up, go in there. After you've been told that a couple of times, logic would dictate that, you catch on. But then again, I cannot expect you nor Mr. Largo to enforce parking throughout the rest of the street. I can't. And it's unreasonable. So, but within his domain. Yes, and as Mr. Jimenez says, someone proactively. I was going back to proactively emphasizing the fact that, you're putting, you're impeding the other neighbors' traffic flow. That might work.
Through the chair. My last two comments. I just want Nela, Rafaela, Roberto, the rest of the neighbors to be happy. I want Mr. Largo to be successful. And I want Mr. Lucas to perhaps go home too early because like, I don't know if he's charging by the hour.
I was actually reminded earlier by Ms. Mejidas Perez that the heater played at 9:30. So as long as you get me home by 9:30, I'll be good to go.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
I just have one question. I understand that you are agreeing to all these concessions and all these. All these. Restrictions that we're putting on it. I've yet to hear from Mr. Lugo. Is he agreeing to this? Are you gonna go back? and then-
I'm standing here
After you
as,
talk to him, because maybe you're saying yes, 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 but when you go back and sit with Mr. Lugo. Mr. Lugo says, "Well, I don't want to do this. Because apparently he hasn't done any of it lately. Mr. Largo. Yes, he hasn't-
Mr. Largo,
He
Mr.
hasn't
Largo.
done any of it in over a year. And that's my main concern, because you can say yes, that he will do it. But I haven't heard from him saying that
Bueno,
he
you
would do it.
Can we ask him?
I am the attorney representing Mr. Largo as the applicant, and
Mhm.
I have the authority to proffer these conditions.
I understand that, but things change when you're in the chambers with him. And you tell him, well, these are the conditions that I put. He said, well, you agreed to them, but I didn't. And that is something that may happen.
Well,
You
Mr.
tell me no, but they are things that could happen. They've asked him to cover the garbage cans for over a year. A simple request. They have yet to cover one garbage can. They asked for
I
over
have
a
no,
year,
res-
they
I have
asked
no
him,
response to that.
please keep the streets clean. He has yet to keep the streets clean. I feel for my residents. I really do. And it breaks my heart to see it. I understand I'm supposed to see this with just blinders on. But I have yet to hear anything from Mr. Largo.
Largo.
Lucky Largo.
Through the
Okay,
chair.
I understand he doesn't have to take it, but it would have been a little bit more. For me, it would have been a better feeling.
Well, I would be,
Directly from him. And I understand that you represent him, but things change when people talk, you know?
I can assure you that if there were any changes to be made on behalf of Mr. Largo regarding any of the representations that have been made to this board, which I am asking for you to rely upon, that I will be the first one to bring that to this board's attention and or to the city council as the case may be. That's the type of forthrightness and openness that we need to have in order for this system to work. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It's broken. So I've asked this board, and the board knows that it can rely upon representations of council. If you feel that you're unable to do so, I respect that. I would encourage you, however, to be more trustful and to hear what I'm saying and how I've said it and the commitment that I've made on behalf of the client. And with that being said, I would urge a favorable recommendation subject to those conditions and the commitment on part of Mr. Largo to fulfill those if and when he should receive an approval from the city council.
Thank you,
And I
Mr.
thank you
Lucas.
again for your evening.
Deborah, Alex, do we have the conditions that he's proffered? Do we have them on record or just on record, or do we have them written down? Or
This is a recorded, so I'm sure you said this will go back to the recording.
so you can
Write it in
you
the
can do a
agenda,
transcript and
in the
okay.
minutes.
Okay. That being said, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve with conditions.
Motion to approve,
Second that.
motion with conditions.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Jimenez, second by Mr. Gamon and Mr. Iglesias. Mr. G. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Gamon,
Yes.
Mr. Iglesias,
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
Mr. Yoa.
No.
Item's been approved with conditions.
Mr. Lucas, you can stay there. I just. Please. Speak with Mr. Largo. And bring to light the benefits of being a good neighbor. Okay, there's a lot of benefits. It benefits him for his business. It benefits the neighbors. So please, in case he has a little fog in his head, help him clear the fog. Thank you.
Moving forward, can I ask a question now that you guys voted? What's the next process? How soon does this go to the council?
This goes to council on
And May 9th. It starts
Right,
at 7
and
p.m.
then it goes to a first and second reading.
First and second
And
reading.
opportunity to speak only on first. or
Second.
Second reading.
Second,
Okay.
but be there on both, because it affects you obviously, and you want to hear what the council has to say. They may or may not give them an opportunity to speak on the first hearing. I don't quote me on that. Definitely second hearing is public hearing. Okay, all right, thank you. Next, order of business.
Miscellaneous items not requiring advertising. Item number 5, old business. No old business. Item number 6, new business.
New business and a new business?
I just have a comment. Mr. Perez, you look very nice with a tie. Sure.
I figure, hey, I found that in my closet, so I figure.
I'm very proud of you.
Okay,
He got inspired by.
yeah, you guys